June 11th, it's Eastern Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm the chair, Ryan Cook, and we're going to start off, probably the first item on the public hearing notice was a variance by Mr. Carroll for 2 Howard Street. They have asked for continuance because they had a baby girl, right? So we will need to vote on continuing to our July 9th at 6:35 p.m.
Move to approve the continuance of the hearing on the variance to July 9, in this room, I believe.
It is, yeah, we did book it for this room. Yep,
I'll second the motion.
we had a second. All right, all those in favor? All right, that is 5-0. All right,
That was easy.
next we have,
And just
is this the variance Gwendolyn Duchart, 49 Peterson Road? You ready, ma'am?
Do we have to wait until 6:45?
Do we have, yeah, we got to wait 10 minutes because it says 6:45. Yeah, pass these things out.
Sorry.
That'd be great.
That's okay.
I'm a stickler for rules.
Yeah. We have the
Maybe we can,
vote for 482 Foundry Street wants to continue to July 9th as well. So we'll, once Ms. Duchart, yeah, in the minutes. We can eat up time. All right, so 42 Foundry Street, which is the proposed Taco Bell, they have also asked to be continued to July 9th because we're waiting for review of traffic, peer review of the traffic study. So I would need, what's that? Traffic, yeah. So I'll need obviously two folks to say that we'll vote to continue that to July 9th.
well, I'll move to continue the hearing on the special permit for 402 Foundry Street to July 9.
482 Foundry Street?
Oh, is it
482.
482, excuse me.
Sorry, you are getting older, it's okay.
I need glasses.
Me too. All right, we have one. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second on that. All right, so all those in favor of moving the 482 Foundry Street special permit to July 9th at 6:45 p.m. And that is 5. Fantastic. All right, and then we can vote. Did everybody have a chance to review the meeting minutes from May 7th?
I did.
I did.
I entertain a motion for that.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. What was that, May 7th, you said?
May 7th.
Move to approve the minutes from the meeting of May 7th.
All right, we have a motion.
Seconded.
We have a second from Mr. Kay. All those in favor? All right, fantastic. We are good. And we managed to kill 3 minutes. So. I like getting full-size printouts, or at least legal size. Or that. Mm-hmm.
These were on permittes, right?
Yes, they've been uploaded.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, when I first reviewed it, these were not. These are more recent.
These are more recent.
Yeah.
These are updated.
Yeah. Yeah, 6/9, so 2 days ago.
Spent plenty of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen these. It's a much more comfortable setting.
Here.
Yeah. Although it's more of a pain for you because you got to load everything in your car. Do you then go back to town hall to drop everything? Oh, okay.
I didn't at 10:30.
No, we stayed here till the very last minute. Apparently, we're supposed to be done by 10:30, is that?
Really?
Yeah, they don't want it to end until midnight.
Oh. Oh, you mean in this building? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were a lot of people here the
I
last
saw.
time. Oh, you
I watched
watched?
the video.
Uh-oh.
Watched the whole thing.
Are you talking about Highland Street?
No,
Oh.
the one from last.
Well, so 42 Foundry. So listen to Walter's presentation.
Oh, you listened to the
Yeah.
the Taco Bell one.
Mm-hmm.
So you're up to speed.
I am.
Yes.
I did my Mullen form.
Nice.
Yeah, so
What was your rating of how we did without you?
I said fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sitting on it.
Well, I was just literally just going to ask you. So on this one,
I knew it. I think I read it for it to
all right. So it's going to be Curran. He's a full member. Yeah, that's why I brought this up, so I knew who's member versus who's alternate. Yeah,
but she's
All right.
on.
correct. Hamburger.
I think we're mostly here for the variety store one.
you mean,
That should be the
gas
same
station.
on 402
Yeah.
Turnpike.
I don't recognize them from last time.
there's a lot of people out in the hall.
Oh,
I
are there?
think they'll probably come pouring in when
Oh,
everything.
Yeah, once we get to Highland Street. Oh, yeah.
The people out in the hall were here for the one that got continued.
Some of them were.
Right, because they didn't see that. I was like, oh, well, I'm here. You know what? I'd rather a room full of people than 2 people and us talking to an empty space.
Oh, so what I was going to tell you is my appointment is up, and I reapplied, and the selectmen are going to vote on it on June 24. Then I'm leaving town on the evening of June 27.
Oh, okay.
So I have to make sure that I get over to town hall to take the oath, assuming that they.
Yeah, they
Reappointment.
if someone is looking to be reappointed, they normally just, yep, go ahead.
Yeah.
Unless they got complaints.
Now, maybe find out. You never know, right?
You never know.
How long have you been doing this?
I think 12 years now. Yeah, pretty sure 12 years.
This is I'm into year 6, I think, now.
I think we started at the same time,
June of 2018.
something like that. I was an alternate, and
Yeah.
you were originally
Right,
the same day because we went in the same day. I remember.
correct.
The recordings are very
Yeah,
Yeah.
the sound was good on the video, except for when they stepped away from the microphone, then you really can't hear it at all, as opposed to,
well, hopefully this might
yeah, where is it?
It's in that bin over there.
Oh, I see. Okay,
turn it on to see if it looks good.
okay. Okay, go a minute.
Go by military time.
I do. And no one has to tell me, do you mean AM or PM?
Yeah.
Did we continue Forest Foundry? No. And
We did.
we did? Oh, we did.
We did.
Then we did miss. Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Good.
Doing better, not in as much pain, after the second surgery. Still uncomfortable, but he's like, it doesn't hurt as much as it did before.
So I have 6:45.
Yeah, it's time to go. We are ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Duchart? All right, so this first is a variance for 49 Peterson Road, and sitting on this hearing is Vice Chair John Curran to my left. Then we have the Secretary, Mr. Kay. We have then Mr. Hanberger, and our newest member, Mr. Hardiman. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our project.
Do you have? Yeah, because so when it's on TV, we got to use the microphone. So
Hey, Ryan, am I supposed to read the thing?
well, yeah. Thank you. All right. So I just got to read it into the record.
Sure.
So, Mr. Secretary.
Is it clerk or secretary?
Clerk.
Clerk.
Good.
Thank
We're
you.
on things.
Okay.
Clerk is better. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Jeremy.
All right, thank you. The Easton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing Tuesday, June 11, 2024 at, well, it says 6:50 p.m. here at,
Oh, 6:45.
6:45.
oh, I'm
think
reading
you
the
were-
wrong one. My bad. I apologize. The Easton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 11, 2024 at 6:45 p.m. at Simmons Lecture Hall, Oliver Ames High School, 100 Lothrop Street, Easton, Mass. On the following petition, variance, Gwendolyn Duchart for property located at 49 Peterson Road, Easton, Assessors Map 51U, Lot 19, for variance pursuant to Easton Code Book, Chapter 235, Section 235-54B, subsection 3, and Attachment 2, Appendix B, Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations to allow zoning relief from dimensional and density regulations to construct in addition on a pre-existing non-conforming lot. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org. Affordable Housing Trust, or the comments, Affordable Housing Trust.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Department comments received. Affordable Housing Trust, not applicable. Board of Health recommends. Building Department recommends. DPW, not applicable. Environmental Planner, not applicable. Fire Department recommends. Historical Commission, not applicable. Planning and Zoning Board recommends. Police Department recommends. Water Division, not applicable.
All right, we're all set. Now you can take it away.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present the project. My husband and I moved to Easton back in 2017 and really fell in love with the neighborhood we're living in. We purchased a very small home that we have really outgrown and would love to stay in the community and increase the size of our house. It's about a 20 by 42 foot ranch that we would like to put a second floor on. The property is currently non-conforming as it sits in the westerly side yard setback. We're about 11 feet off the property line when we should be beyond 15. By putting the second floor on, I realized that exacerbates that nonconformity. I would also like to add a small bump out to the front of our house to act as a center entrance to the home, and run a covered porch across the front of the house, which then will also extend into the front yard setback. So that's what I'm here for, to ask for relief. The property was built or sited before the zoning laws came into effect, and I think that's why it started out as a non-conforming property. We don't really have much opportunity to build out in the back. We've got a bulkhead in the back, an existing sunroom, and an existing deck. So building out towards the rear of the property becomes much more cost prohibitive, and we'd have to remove structures that we ideally would like to keep.
Okay. Is that your whole presentation?
Well,
I just want to make sure you have the chance to, get everything out you want to get out.
Sure.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just as simple as me asking to extend into the front yard setback. Our property line doesn't go quite up to the street. There is about a 5-foot buffer zone between our property edge and the street. So I realize, we're asking to put the house closer to the street, but with that 5-foot buffer zone, it still keeps it back about 25 feet from the actual edge of the street. So you're not really encroaching on the public way as much as we would otherwise.
Okay, any members of the board have any questions? We'll start all the way down the end. If you had the opportunity to review the package. I have. Okay, do you have any questions? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hanberger.
The only question I would have is the house, existing framework of the house structurally sound enough to support the additional weight? And if not,
It should be. I mean, it is 2x4 framing, which is not uncommon. It has an 8-inch poured foundation wall, so it's not CMU or anything. So from a foundation standpoint, I think we're also in good shape. If it turns out that the 2x4 construction on that first floor wouldn't be sufficient, I think we can either, sister up, add 2x6 framing into it, or even consider doing a series of posts, running an LVL across the front and the back and spanning it that way. So I think there's ways around, which would be costly, but I think it's possible. Thank you.
Okay.
I have no questions, thank you.
No questions.
I likewise have no questions.
Chairman, I have a couple. I realize I'm not voting, but I have.
Well, so because you're a member of the board, we'll finish with our questions, and when it's time for the public, as a member of the public, then you can ask questions. Okay. No further questions from the board?
No.
Okay. So any members of the public like to ask any questions or make any comments?
What I failed to mention is I do have
Letter from your neighbors?
Exactly.
Yeah,
We got,
please.
like all our directly abutting neighbors. I've showed them the drawings. They've heard my plans for this house for years now. And just asked them to sign off if they felt comfortable with our plans moving forward. And we also have 2 neighbors in the audience today in support of the project as well.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. Ms. Rummel, you have some questions?
Very much. Just a couple. You mentioned, through you, Mr. Chairman, the applicant mentioned a buffer, an additional buffer. I wondered if that could be explained.
What she was saying is there's a 5-foot buffer between the front of the property and the road. No, I mean, you want to get into that more?
Sure. So on the second page in the submittal, when you look where Peterson Road is called out, the edge of the street is actually not as far back as our property line. So there's a sliver there that we've actually assumed was our property, and we have put up, plantings and a small fence and everything. But that's about 5 feet. So the edge of the paved street to our property line is about a 5-foot zone. As far as I know, it's not an easement. There's nothing on our deed that calls it an easement or anything. Maybe for a future sidewalk at some point in time, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I would question that. I would question that, Mr. Chairman, just whether or not that's actually a buffer. It actually still belongs to the town. I don't know that it's a buffer. It's interesting. The other question I had through you is, I want confirmation, if I could, that the deck and the sunroom, which I think is the hatched area, were also added by the applicant and not.
Those were pre-existing.
You did not add them?
No.
Okay. And I'd also like to know why there was no extension, because we're not going to variance, not a special permit here. We're increasing a nonconformity, and I'm trying to determine whether or not that's really necessary. I think in your letter, you mentioned something about a financial hardship. I'm not sure that really meets the definition, through you, Mr. Chairman, of what we're thinking of when we think of hardship, because it costs more money or because it's inconvenient. There's already a deck. My understanding is that if it's, I don't know how the applicant wants to represent that this is a condition of the property, not a condition of a structure that was man-made or put in place. And then finally, I'd like to know why we can't build out to the east. It's not finally, one more. Build out to the east instead of to the front, so that you could get your square footage without the increased nonconformity?
I mean, I guess it is possible to take a look at building out to the east. Just from a design standpoint, I was hoping to keep anything that's living space, like dining room, living room, kitchen on the first floor, and just moving all bedrooms to the second floor. You know, again, it would be an addition that would be more significant in size in terms of adding foundation walls. I mean, the kind of the overall look I was going for is more of like a center entrance colonial rather than expanding on an existing ranch and keeping it a single story.
So then is the impediment to that the fact that it's a preference for you, is that correct?
I guess in a way, yes, it is a preference.
And would you know, this is my final question, but you're showing the orange area, which is the proposed structures increased in the front yard setback. Do you know, can you estimate what percentage of square foot you're now adding that to a nonconformity that wasn't there before?
So let's see. The main portion of it is a covered porch, which is about 7 feet by 40.
Okay.
And then the livable space that is cutting into that would be cutting into the front yard setback is about 4 by 16.
But not livable space, I mean, aren't we measuring, we're measuring structure, correct? That would be in the setback?
Yes.
So you have 2 stories of increased frontage, is that correct?
Yes, you're right, that's
So
true.
is that like 500-something, 60 square feet
Right.
that you've elected to increase this, that would have been, was not pre-existing nonconforming, it's a new nonconformity, increased
Correct.
nonconformity. And the total square footage of your proposed new dwelling, do you recall?
The total square footage would be around 1,000 square feet on that second floor. So it's 840 currently. I'm proposing to bump out an additional 2 feet in the back and the front with an overhang. So 4 by 42 added to the 840. So it's roughly an additional like 1,000 square feet on the second floor.
So I might just question whether that's de minimis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions from the public? Okay, at this point, we will close the public comment and the board will debate. So as always, you always have this, Mr. Hardman, just so you know, at the back of the book, what we did is made sure we always have a copy of standards for variance, special permit, et cetera, to step through. And what we like to do is step through it one item at a time and make sure that we're applying the Mass General law as best we can, but obviously as members of the board, we have some leeway in how we want to be able to interpret that. So if we step through, well, first, I'm going to see, would anybody like to start the discussion? For me, I was just going to start stepping through the variance standards.
No,
That's fine.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful.
All right, so first, special circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, or topography of such land or structure. And typically, it's such that it's different than the surrounding properties. It creates a hardship. Now, I don't necessarily, me personally, I don't necessarily think that there's a hardship in that case, that it's substantially different than the other properties. It's just that probably these lots most certainly predated zoning. And so the houses were built as they were. A literal interpretation of the provision of the Town of Easton zoning bylaw would involve a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. Again, that one, Gene, what you were talking about earlier, is that really a hardship? Again, these are one of the things within this stuff that it doesn't, I don't think it's well defined. It's very vague and allows interpretation. So, whether there is substantial hardship, financial or otherwise could be anything. And then, asking the applicant to go the opposite way to try and, because we generally don't like to create a more of a nonconformity, right? We don't want to take a nonconforming lot and typically make it more nonconforming. And the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. So this is where I want to make sure that we're having a discussion about this. So if anybody want to add in?
I think it's a nice improvement.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as far as the first requirement, special circumstances, I'm not sure that we really know what the purpose of that buffer was, but it does, while they're extending it out somewhat, it's still going to be set back from the road just a little bit, so that, but it's going to end up being, what, an additional 7-foot extension, I think?
Yep, roughly 7 feet.
Well, but remember, it says, so this is shape or topography of such land or structure.
Right.
So, you know, I would look at that, me personally, as the structure itself is already non-conforming in that buffer zone, but ensure the house was built prior to that buffer, your side yard setback
Right.
being defined.
Right. And then as far as the literal interpretation, I mean, what the family wants to do is improve the look of the property. They want to create additional living space. And, you know, since the standard is a literal interpretation, would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. I mean, the otherwise here could certainly include the limited amount of living space that the families currently inhabits, and their desire to increase that without really, and I guess I'm expressing an opinion here, substantially changing the footprint of the house or the character of the neighborhood, which maybe kind of dovetails into the third standard, which is that the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. I mean, the fact that the family's here and that they've had people from the neighborhood supporting it, if anybody would have an objection.
And a signed positive letter, we don't have anybody here
Right.
saying no.
Right. So, for those reasons, I think that the application has met the variance standard. That would be my opinion of this.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Nothing.
No? No? Okay. Seeing no more discussion, I guess I'll take a motion. Oh, did we not close it? Well, we should probably close the hearing. All right, we'll have a vote to close the hearing.
I move to close the hearing.
Fantastic.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kay. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, go ahead and vote to close the hearing. All those in favor? That is 5-0. All right, someone want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the variance.
Okay. Do we have a second? Mr.
Have that.
Hamburger?
I'll second it.
Have at it.
All right. All those in favor of approving the variance? That is 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
really grateful. Thanks a lot.
So how long before, before the write-up will be ready? A few weeks. Okay, fantastic. Oh, yeah, the letter. Did the letter make its way back down here? Oh, yeah, that's how it goes. Okay. I can get rid of some of this. Okay, we're on to the next, which is a variance for Michelle Leandro of Finsky trustee for property located at 402 Turnpike Street. And on this hearing, myself, Mr. Curran, Mr. Kay, Mr. Hardiman, and Mr. Handberger. And Mr. Kay, did you want to read it into the record? Oh, do you have
Sure.
stuff for us? All right, just, if everybody want to quiet down a little bit, just so we can make sure that, you know, as we're reading this in the record, it's clearly heard by the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. I do not have a problem projecting. All right, make sure you speak up, please.
I sure will. The Easton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 11, 2024 at 6:50 p.m. at Simmons Lecture Hall Oliver Ames High School, 100 Lothrop Street, Easton, on the following petition, variance 402 Turnpike Street Realty Trust by Michelle Rafinsky Leandro, trustee of the property located at 402 Turnpike Street, Southeastern Mass, Assessors Map 51U, Lot 44, for a variance pursuant to Easton Code Book, Chapter 235, Section 235-54B, subsection 3, and attachment 2, Appendix B, Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations, to allow zoning relief from dimensional and density regulations to construct a pergola within the easement right-of-way on the property. This notice is also available on masspublicnotices.org. Department comments. Affordable Housing Trust, not applicable. Board of Health, no comment. Building Department did not recommend. DPW, no comment. Environmental Planner, not applicable. Fire Department, no comment. Historical Commission, not applicable. Planning and Zoning Board recommends. Police Department recommends. Water Division, not applicable. Comment received from Building. The purpose of the easement appears to legalize a use already in play, egress and parking. The intent does not appear to consider building or adding to the structure within the easement. The outdoor dining area could be constructed at the rear entrance and not require a variance. The location would be safer from vehicle traffic as well. KG did not recommend.
All set?
That's it.
Oh, yeah, no, I said that. So sitting on this hearing, again, myself, Mr. Curran, Mr. Kay, Mr. Hardiman, and Mr. Hanberger. Okay, so,
Building inspector. I think it's the
get
building
to,
inspector.
all right, we are ready when you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Tanya Trevison. I represent the applicants, Michelle and,
Yeah, so it's not tied to the microphones in here, it's tied for the broadcast.
do you want me to face this way so you can hear better? I can do that.
Speak loud.
Okay, I will speak louder. My name is Tanya Trevison. I'm with the law firm of Mirioni, Shaughnessy, and Udy. I represent the applicants, Michelle and Manny Leandro, who are with me this evening. We are here, as the notice said, to request a variance from that provision of the code that requires a 25-foot setback at the side yard. This variance is strictly for this wood trellis pergola. This board actually already granted a special permit for a special permit for the use of the easement area as an outdoor dining space. So to address the comment by the building commissioner, I believe he may not have read the application because the special permit for the outdoor dining area was already granted in 2021, and the Planning and Zoning Board also granted a site approval in 2023, and construction has already commenced on the outdoor dining area. So I passed out some exhibits for you all to see. The first picture is of the property prior to any construction taking place. There are several thereafter that demonstrate what the construction looks like currently. You can see the stone wall that is in front of the outdoor dining area and its extension toward the back, and there are different perspectives of from the rear of the property, the front of the property, and within that easement area itself. The neighboring property owner who owns the easement area is also here this evening, I understand in support of the project. And also, at the back of the package that I handed to you are these two depictions by the architects. So basically from 402 Turnpike Street, you can see what the outdoor patio will look like and the trellis pergola after that, once it's constructed, if approved. The reason we're seeking a variance tonight is because the zoning code provides for a 25-foot setback in this area. The shape of the easement area where this outdoor dining is located is a triangular shape, which is best seen, because this is so small, in the handouts that I gave you. So you can see the triangular area. There's shrubs up here which are not part of the applicant's property. This is the neighbor's property. And the triangle goes down and connects with the outdoor dining area there. So the pergola is going to be at the most 4 feet 10 inches setback, and at a minimum 8 inches setback from the property line of that easement area. So that is essentially what we're requesting tonight. Just want to see if there's anything else. To address the hardship issue, one of the other elements of the variance, the inability to construct the pergola, which would provide an aesthetic value and visual appeal to the property. It would add comfort to the outdoor diners. There is no adverse impact associated with this proposed pergola. It wouldn't, and the neighbor, like I said, the only neighbor in the area is in support of the project. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay. All right. Any members of the board? We'll start all the way down the left again. Mr. Hardiman, if you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Handberger.
I have two. Somewhere in the packet, I read that the restaurant is limited to 95 people occupancy?
99.
99?
Yes.
And I counted the tables as shown on your plan, and it's pretty close to that for the exterior. Now, how would you maintain that maximum capacity with double the occupancy?
Right, that's a very good question. So I had spoken at length with the applicant about this, and the reason that they had proposed the outdoor seating area in the first place is in the warmer months, May through late September, they typically lose a lot of patrons to other establishments that offer outdoor dining. So they currently, I understand they're down 30% inside. So the idea is to be able to keep the business up and flowing during all seasons, so that in the summer months, when the weather is more amenable, he'll be able to have those people outside where they want to be, and then in the winter, they'll obviously all be inside and nobody will be sitting outside. So that's the intention.
And there's no way to enforce that maximum occupancy?
Well, they don't anticipate having over that number of people, but that's part of the special permit that was issued. It was a condition that the patrons be limited to 99, so that is what they intend to have a maximum of.
And my other question would be, the pergola construction is open air,
Yeah,
so there's no, if it rains,
if it rains,
everybody gets wet, and
they go inside because there will be room. Right,
hopefully.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have any questions right now. I guess we'll hear from the owner at some point, or the,
Well, the attorney's here.
no, the owner, the owner of the land where
The abutter.
right, well, he owns it. They have an easement.
Okay.
So Is that, I guess I'm interested in hearing from that person.
Absolutely, he's here.
Yeah,
Are
please.
you ready to? Okay,
Yeah.
Derek, would you like to come up?
Just make sure you give name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Derek Vassapolo, 398 Turnpike Street.
Thank you.
So yeah, they've been my neighbors for a number of years now. They're a great couple, and the business is fantastic. And they're
Just make sure you speak up so everyone
sure,
can hear.
yeah. Sorry for the back row. No, they're great neighbors. Great neighbors. There's never any trouble over there. The restaurant's great. They're great, and I'm all for it. So
Do you live there?
I do live there. Yes.
And so you actually own the land that they want to put this on,
Yes, that's right.
and you have no problem with that?
I have no problem.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for him?
I don't, thank you.
Okay. Great, thank you.
All right, sure.
I guess, I don't know if this is a question or a statement, but if I understand all this correctly, you're asking us to basically approve through this pergola what was already approved in the special permit, right? I mean, it's in terms of the outdoor dining and the seating area and whatnot. It's the same thing.
So the pergola is actually considered a structure under the zoning bylaw, so it requires a variance itself.
Right, no, I
Yeah.
understand, but it's,
Okay.
the area of outdoor dining isn't being increased.
Correct. Correct.
And this is just to surround
An
an
overlay,
area that's
yeah.
already been approved for outdoor dining.
Correct.
Thank you, that's all.
Yep.
Okay, good, because those are my questions. Because I wasn't on the hearing for the special permit, because that's what I was just going, if you saw me going through my computer, I was looking for the previous special permit, and you were the only active member who was on that.
Oh,
So.
I wish I could say I remember.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I was trying to understand is what exactly was the special permit, and then what is the variance? So I was trying to understand what it is we were being asked. And really just seems like the pergola.
That's it.
Okay,
That's all it is. Yep.
wow. Okay, tell Walter to make shorter letters.
Oh, sorry. That was actually my doing, so
yeah,
I'll report back.
So, all right, so just so we understand, they're just looking to put the pergola. I just want to see, actually it's right here. Yeah, okay. So it's surrounding that entire basic patio area that you had built up.
Right.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty straightforward. Any other questions from the board?
Just one.
Yep, go ahead.
Sort of wearing my other hat as a member of the Board of Assessors. Who's responsible for the real estate taxes on the structure?
That is beyond my purview.
Yeah, and it's not really our
No
purview. Wait, who's speaking? So need names and addresses so we know. We need the,
Annie, you want to come up?
yeah.
So my name is Manny Leandro, and me and my wife, we own the spot there for 8 years, Leandro's, and the town been just like great support to us. And the whole idea for this pergola was to give the shade for the gas during the summer time, because on our end, if we do just the patio without any shade or anything, on the summertime, the people not gonna be over there. And our proposal is to keep the flow during the warmer months and keep everybody working the same hours they normally do. Instead, like a drop like 30% of the hours from them, and of course, cutting the employees' hours, always cut the pay too, especially the sales and stuff like that. That's one of the idea, and that's the whole proposal. And I believe for the tax, are we gonna be paying them? I don't know how it works, but that's how I believe that will be. You know?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Leandro. Did you want to come up and speak again?
All right, I have a slight correction.
Okay.
It appears that the pergola is not going to be open, but covered. Yeah.
Hi, Derek Vaspolo again. The property next door is a duplex, so there is a condo trust, so the property taxes don't show an actual taxed value on the land, it's just a taxed value on the buildings. So I don't actually know for that variance if there's a separate bill that goes to next door. I've never seen an actual land assessment for the taxes, it's just the building.
Well, in the assessment, they have an assessed value for land and buildings thereon. So it's always in two pieces.
Yeah, but for the condo though.
For the condo, it isn't.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
like that for the
okay.
condo. So,
Oh, right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right.
all-
But regardless, I mean, it's not really,
It doesn't
it
bear.
does,
the
it
rest.
has no bearing on what we're doing here.
I'll ask a follow-up. You own both units of the condo?
I own a rear unit, Unit B. I did own both, and I sold the front one to the person that was renting it.
Okay, is that person here?
Cameron's not here tonight, no. No, I'm the trustee for the trust on that property.
Is it common, the area that we're talking, well, no,
Is the
Has to
land
be.
owned by the condo trust?
it would be, well, it'd probably be, it would be condo, a common area, I assume.
Common area.
And you're the trustee.
Yeah, it's set there, between the properties is a fence and a line of arborvitae, so it's, you don't even see that area really. It's like not something that we would use, Cameron or myself would even use as a common area.
Do you have any concerns about additional noise with a covered pergola?
No.
Okay.
It'll be the same whether there's a patio there or a pergola covering it. Same.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions from the board?
No.
Okay, so we'll open it up to the public. Go ahead, Ms. Rummel.
Sorry. Thank you. I have questions whether or not, I was reading the building commissioner's notes. Have you used this area that you have shown in the pictures as laid out as a patio, therefore not a structure required? The special permit use was just for the use for outside dining, is that not correct?
That's correct.
Have you used this area, the patio area, since the granting of special permit?
No, it's under construction.
So it's been under construction for 3 years?
Okay. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
Manny, I'll answer the question. Thank you.
So during the COVID, the area just was used for like 2 years, I believe, and got expired. And we could use to, if I'm not mistaken, to about April 1st of this year. We still allowed to use the area, but and last year we got approval to do the patio over there, and we didn't want to use for this year, especially in April. It's cold. In March and April it's a little bit colder, and we plan to start the construction. And that's what happened, you know. And we're here now waiting and seek for this approval.
So I think I understand. May I just ask you also, Mr. Chairman, what were your plans at the time in terms of shade? I mean, certainly places use umbrellas, shade sails, lots of other sorts of tenting that wouldn't require.
To be honest with you, those umbrellas that we've seen from the past, they didn't work. Because whenever you have those umbrellas, the shade is never over the table, it's outside. Doesn't matter how you move them, and they still didn't seek our purpose to have that. And even the structure for this pergola is movable. So anytime they'll decide to like break it down, we still be able to do it.
So the
Okay.
building commissioner still considers this a structure if you can take it apart like that?
I'm assuming yes, but I cannot answer your question.
Thank you. So you
Exactly.
haven't used it at all until this point. Did you, at what point did you anticipate that you'd like to put in a pergola?
Since we started the construction, even before, when our plan got approved in 2023, we have on the plans, right down the patio that will be covered with a pergola.
there a
And
reason you didn't seek variance when you?
the reason, to be honest with you, the reason was because we thought there was no need, because when they got approved by the zoning board, they didn't say anything. They just said that we was good to go on the permit, and we only discovered that we wasn't when we applied for the permit.
So was it your understanding, my understanding correctly, that when you first applied, you just assumed you put a pergola and then?
I
found out
did
that
put
you
the
did not?
pergola on the plan. So was there on the plan, the patio that will be covered with a pergola. Because that everything was there, just write down, we assumed that everything was good to go. They didn't say, oh, we approve, but you have to go to the appeals. They
Were you
didn't say
rep-
anything.
Excuse me, sir, were you represented at the time by counsel? Did you have
I'm now, I
somebody
just
else
have
who
my, it's my engineer there, was me, my engineer, and my cousin. That's all it was. I didn't have a lawyer with us.
Did you consider whether or not, as per the building commissioner's suggestion, that you would expand the dining to a different area that didn't require a variance?
When we talked to them, even the 2021, we talked to everybody, to the building inspector at that time, to the board of health, to the fire department. We talked to everybody, and they recommend us to put over there, because that was doing the cover, that was the same spot. The place was being used during the cover. Our intention was put it all the way to the front of the building, and the fire department at that time recommended us to put it aside on the same place that we was using for just like during the cover. That's the whole proposal of this. And when everything got approved, and nobody had any, the building department was in favor, the board of health was in favor. That's why we also applied for the 99 seats for don't increase our capacity. That was one of those required from just from the board of health. That's the only required they had.
Excuse me, isn't that based on the septic capacity?
Our SEPT is about 120. We could increase our capacity to about 120.
So at any time had you considered, you would agree that there was no, when the fire department made their recommendation, there was no proposal that included a structure, is that correct?
The proposal of the patio was there, and also the proposal of to be covered was there too.
Is where, sir?
When we discussed with them, we discussed that we want to put the patio, cover everything else on that area. That's where that was the whole situation.
As part of your plan, for example?
Yeah, that was part of the plans.
Okay.
Exactly.
And just a couple more, Mr. Chairman. When it comes to the easement issue, I think that my colleague has asked some very pertinent questions about the ownership of the easement. Will there be a license? Will there be a license required for the owner of the easement to grant? In other words, is he giving this property away, or
No,
is the
there's-
structure there something that keeps it under an adverse possession?
No, the property is, there's a deeded easement, and the deeded easement provides that that sliver of land can be used for access, ingress, egress, vehicular access, and any other use for which the owner puts it. So it's a restaurant, thus flowing to the outdoor dining. So it's a deeded right.
Yep.
Thank you. And was there any other concern about, the building commissioner's suggestions of putting it where you wouldn't need a variance? Had that been discussed there?
Well, again, with all due respect, that was an issue that probably should have been raised during the special permit hearing in 2021. I'm not sure why this issue was brought up now, because it's already been approved by both the zoning board and the planning and zoning board in 2023. So,
Is that just not the patio, though, no structure, correct?
well, it's my understanding that the pergola was contained in the plans originally, but a variance was not sought, and no questions were raised about it at that time, so they only went for the special permit. That's my understanding. I didn't represent them back at that time, and I have no historical knowledge otherwise, but we're coming back now to legalize it and request the variance for the pergola.
Anybody else in the public? Okay, I guess at this point, we will close the hearing.
I think there is one member of the public here at least that
Okay.
wanted to.
Just name and address and speak nice and clear so
My
people
name-
on the far side can hear you.
My name is Geraldine Osborne, 42 Beaver Dam Road. I've known this family for a few years. I am a patron of the restaurant. They have improved it considerably from the last 3 or 4 places that have been there. They run a safe family atmosphere, which is very good. And yes, it's true that when the summer comes, people like to go to some of your other restaurants here in town because they do have the outdoor. And I feel very badly for them that they're losing at this point, and they're losing when they started construction and had to stop when it was approved by all those boards, and it was approved by the select board as well, which I don't know if you knew that. So it was approved by all those boards. On their drawing, it had the word pergola on it, but as you stated, whatever you wanted to, whatever you knew the difference. But it's a safe, family-run business, and it would be terrible if they had to lose anything more after all they've done to improve the area. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at the original submitted plan for the special permit, and I just see patio, I don't see pergola on here. But, I mean, at this point, I think it's moot. So I just want to make sure that that's corrected. It doesn't say pergola on here. I'm looking at it right here on my screen. Thank you. All right, any other, I mean, at that point, do we have any other comments from the public? All right, seeing none, we're gonna vote to close the hearing.
I'll move to close the hearing
Okay.
for this variance application.
We have a motion to close. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hamburger is second. All those in favor of closing the hearing? All right, that's 5-0. Okay, discussion. I'll let someone else start it. So pick whoever you want.
Me?
Go, sure.
Yeah, I was gonna clown around, I shouldn't. Jeremy, you have anything?
I might be. I mean, I don't want to go away from the list of considerations that we're supposed to consider, but I will. And I'll just say generally that I might have a problem with this if it wasn't for that the next door neighbor is who owns it, and it's common area of a condominium. It sounds like, and he's the trustee, and he's supportive of it. And all we're talking about is the putting a pergola on an area that's going to be used for the same purpose anyway. So that's my analysis.
Okay.
Ron?
I don't think I have any added comments now.
Mr. Hardeman?
No, I'm supportive.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'll just say, again, going through the standards, there are 3 considerations that we're supposed to look at. Number one being, there are special circumstances relating to the soil condition, shape, or topography of such land or structure. I mean, I think we've met that. I mean, we approved this as an outdoor area back in 2021. I approved it. I don't think that putting a pergola in there is such a different.
It's not changing the use.
No. Number 2, a literal interpretation would involve a substantial hardship. I mean, I think the hardship is that without this, the area isn't as attractive as it might otherwise be. And, the applicants have been operating under the assumption all along that they could be able to create a nice, fine area for outdoor dining, and that's part of it. So it would be, in my opinion, a substantial hardship to say no to this. And the third consideration desirable. Relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. I'm leaving out the second part of that, but still, the next, like you said, Jeremy, the next door neighbor is in support of this. And again, we've already considered that originally when we agreed to the having the outdoor dining. So I think all three of those standards have been met for approving a variance.
Yeah. So my take on that is shape, size, topography, very clear. I mean, you can see the, just by the plot plan, there's definitely different shape than the surrounding lots. Little interpretation of the bylaws involves substantial hardship. Part of the challenge here is that it's been approved by multiple other boards. It's been approved by this board as a special permit. It's been approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. It's been approved, the use has been approved by the, I want to make sure I'm using the right phrase, the Select Board. And at this point, to not allow, we would be inducing a hardship, which is not our job, to be creating hardships for either citizens of town or businesses in town. Desirable relief may be granted to the point where the next door neighbor who has the easement for that property is in favor of it, and we have no members of the public here opposing it. To me, I think that would be a travesty to not move forward and allow them to construct a pergola, because we're not changing the shape and we're not changing the use. So that is my interpretation. So at this point, I guess if there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move to approve the variance at 402 Turnpike Street Realty Trust for the pergola.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second
Mr.
it.
Hanverger. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote by hand vote. All those in favor of approving, that is 5-0. So,
Thank you.
Now my question
having
gets
this a
into
layout
who
just
owns
makes it
the
so much
land.
easier for
The
everyone.
land is
Brian, I
owned
can't-
by,
can't agree
by
more.
the,
Condominium.
well, the
It's
land
been
is.
through every board.
The land
And then
is.
to turn around and say
is-
no at this point. And
is
granted, we're still
owned
on hot mic
by-
here, but,
Well, it's
and
managed
the
by
hearing
the
is closed,
trust,
but,
and the trust
I
is
mean, at
owned
that point,
by
I
the
think it
unit
becomes
owners.
punitive. And that's not our job.
And
agree
there's,
with
to respond to
I'm
Gene's,
putting my other hat on.
to respond to Gene,
Okay.
I don't think you can get adverse possession on
All
a
right, we're going to
condominium
move on to our
down
next
there.
hearing, please. All right, continued public hearing, special permit, RK Realty Trust for 95 Highland Street. Is the applicant present? Okay,
They may
all right,
use this,
okay,
the applicant and the,
all right. Evening.
specific.
All right, and then we have, the presentations are loaded on?
Right here.
Okay, just making sure. Yep. All right, oh, do we have this ready to go? Is it just in sleep mode? They're gonna do gymnastics to jump over it.
Without, yeah. It should work. We tried it before. It
Okay.
should work.
All right, good. I
I'm
just
not
wanted to
putting
make
anything
sure
out
this
yet.
was ready to go.
Are you starting with this? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Yes, just be careful of wires on this. It's this one.
All right. All right, so just go over the ground rules, just like last time. The applicant is going to make a presentation of new information, at which point board mass and questions, then public mass and questions, and then the public will have the opportunity. There are a couple of presentations that you have provided as well, Counselor. So the members of the public will also have the chance to do a couple presentations and ask some additional questions. And I'll say the same thing when it comes to comments. If it's a comment we've already heard, let's try and, just so we're not here until midnight. So if it's a comment we've already heard, we're going to move on, and it'll be in my discretion. If I hear you're making the same comment as someone else, I'm going to ask you to stop, and we're just going to move on. Each person, you get one bite at the apple. You got 3 minutes. Again, just for the sake of time. So once you've had an opportunity to voice your opinion or provide additional information, that will constitute your one opportunity to speak. And one of the members of the board want to take care of timing. Jeremy, you want to take care when it gets to that point for 3 minutes?
As the clerk.
Yeah, and who is sitting on this one? Gina's. All right. And then sitting on this hearing this evening, myself, Mr. Curran, Mr. Kay, Mr. Hanberger, and Ms. Rummel. And that will do. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just make sure because it isn't on speaker for everything, so we want to make sure the folks in the back can hear as well.
I will do
Thank
my
you.
best. Thank
All right.
you. Attorney Brianna Carrera here again on behalf of my client and the petitioner, RK Realty Trust. We're here, as Mr. Chairman had just mentioned.
So if you want
Sure, I will-
to,
sorry.
stand,
You want me to stand?
yeah, please.
Sure.
Your voice projects better that way.
We are here for our continued special permit hearing. I believe our last hearing was held by this honorable board on April 9th, if I recall correctly. And we're here for a special permit for a motor vehicle light service station in the business district. So our continuance was just to address some concerns and questions that were posed both by the board and by the abutters, if you can recall, and we will go through with the answers and the new information that we have to address those concerns that were presented. Next slide, please. So this is just a brief introduction just to reiterate why we are here tonight. So we are here for the special permit for 95 Highland Street. The abutters had referenced the 2019 plan and decision from over 4 years ago several times in their presentations and in their submittals. I need to stress that this is an entirely new plan. It's a new building. It's a new design of the site. The prior proposal in 2019 was keeping the existing building. So it's a completely different design of the site. So this is a completely different proposal, and we hope that you would look at it that way. In the Aquifer Protection District, that called into question the board's jurisdiction at the last hearing, if the board can recall. We submit that the building, the fuel storage, and the sales are all outside of that district. We ask the board to trust in the town's departments and its officials who have reviewed the proposal and submitted comments or attended the DRT meeting. The DRT meeting actually had a memorandum that was attached to it, so I did submit that as part of our one of our exhibits. And some of the department comments I'd like to highlight, if you can go to the next slide, are the building department. So you'll see here, the building department commented the back portion of the property is Aquifer Protection District. No fuel, storage, or gas pumps to be located there. So we have complied with that department comment. The DPW has no objection to the issuance of a special permit for the use of property as a gas station. There are already gas stations in Easton that are currently located within the Canoe River ACEC and or the town's Aquifer Protection District. And then finally, the Planning and Zoning Board that voted to recommend on March 25th. There were also, I believe there was a letter that was submitted on behalf of the Water Division today, and they had submitted a comment as well with some concerns of there being a higher risk due to the APD. We submit the design of this site will address those concerns, and we'll get to that in a minute with the engineers. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is just a roadmap of where we're going tonight. It just highlights all of the things that we are showing as part of this proposal to satisfy the bylaws. It looks more lengthy than it is, but the environment, starting with the environment, we'll be going through the stormwater management and the lid, so that we're just going through what that looks like, how it will work on the site, and some details and pictures of that. As far as the public services and safety, there were some concerns that were raised about my client's staff being able to attend and to address any emergencies that happen on site. So we will speak in more detail about my client's experience with that, the different emergency measures you would find on a site like this, and that's implemented in the fuel system design. As far as traffic, we have an updated traffic memo that we submitted. That was in response to the abutters asking about the school traffic and whether that was taken into consideration. And then our traffic expert will speak to that and the findings. In regards to the need, the opposition has presented that there is no need for this proposal. We have a market expert and a market analysis that was done, and that suggests otherwise. The importance of the competition for this area and also the astronomical savings for its residents, which we will get into in a moment, and as well as the support of the project that has been shown. In regard to fiscal, we will just briefly overview what was mentioned last time about the improvements to the property and how that impacts property taxes, as well as the state's road improvements as well. And then in the neighborhood aspect of the proposal, the opposition had said that there was no mitigation plan that was presented, but there was, and I'd like to go through just some of the points that we have made just to mitigate the impacts that could be seen by the neighborhood here. And that includes answering some of the questions of the board and Mr. Chairman from last time regarding the FHA funding and insurance concerns. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Thanks, Brianna. Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Brian Dunn. I'm the principal of MBL Land Development and Permitting with offices here in 5 Bristol Drive in southeastern Mass. So this slide here talks about the environmental benefits and the protection of the site. The building and fuel storages have been proposed, all of them outside of the Aquifer Protection District. You can see that on our site plan that we've submitted in one of the other slides further down in this presentation. The design of the site would direct any of the runoff from the fuel storage areas away from the Aquifer Protection District. And that's on the next slide. You'll see arrows flowing and showing you where the stormwater design and the flow of the stormwater goes. The design of the site will provide new stormwater management controls and bring a non-compliance site into compliance with the MADEP stormwater rules and regulations, as well as the town of Easton's stormwater rules and regulations. We're also required to provide a new design of the septic system. This new septic system, which we've shown on the site plan as in a proposed location, based on our test pits that we've done, will meet the DEP's Title V regulations, as well as the Town of Easton's Board of Health rules and regulations as they relate to septic system designs. This is the site plan that shows the proposed stormwater flows. As you can see, at the front of the building, if I may approach the, thank you very much. So in the back of the site is the aquifer protection in this green and dashed black line. As you can see, the building is outside of the aquifer protection district. The fuel dispensary area is outside of the aquifer protection district, and the fuel storage tanks are outside of the aquifer protection district. The arrows show the high points. This is the high point of the site proposed. Stormwater flows this way, stormwater flows this way. So anything from this building this way flows to the rain garden system that's proposed as the drainage system. Anything out in this area here, you can see goes to the trench drain, to the water quality structure, and then eventually into our proposed rain garden bioretention area. All of these stormwater flows flow away from the aquifer protection, except for the back of the site, which has a drainage basin in it. Everything out front flows away from the fuel storage area. So this is a true real example of what that bioinfiltration system would look like, the rain garden system in the back of the site as well as the front of the site. This is a low-impact development type of a drainage design. It is required in the stormwater rules and regulations of the town and the DEP that we as engineers must look at low-impact development types of designs prior to us looking at conventional catch basins and manholes and other types of water quality treatment. So we've implemented low-impact development drainage designs while we were planning. The rain gardens give us 90% TSS removal. The state requires 80, so this is even a higher percentage of total suspended solids removal that provide protection to the groundwater. that's located in this area. This type of a design also follows the DEP stormwater rules and regulations, at least 80% TSS removal, and at least 65% of the site of its impervious area must be directed to a recharge BMP, which is the rain garden. We are proposing that, and that will be part of our final design. The adequacy of utilities. We talked about the test bits that we've done in the location of the proposed septic system that we did back in May of 2023 that were witnessed by the Board of Health. The soils and the percolation test that we did truly demonstrate that the soils in the area that we've proposed can support an on-site septic system. We've provided a conceptual septic system design on the plans in the reserve area that's also required. We also have town water, water line systems in and throughout the streets around us. We won't have a well at this location.
And now I'd like to have my client just go through some of her experience owning these types of businesses, just to support that she is aware of how this business or type of business operates and the emergency controls that are in place and implemented.
All right, so if you want to just stand, that way your voice projects and everyone can hear. Thank you.
So I'm Mrs. Patel, and I just want to focus that we are not new in opening and running a gas station. Since 2008, we have 3 gas stations, 2 in New Hampshire and 1 in Massachusetts. Me and my husband are both trained and certified to run this gas station as AB operators. Whoever is running or at the cash register, they are also trained and certified as C operators, and they know what to do in case of an emergency or spills. And we go through this training and certification every 2 years. So it's not like we have got the certification once and we are done, but we go through this every 2 years. So since 2008, that was our first gas station in Nashua, New Hampshire, and another one in Freedom, New Hampshire in 2015. Next. And in 2017, we opened a 3rd gas station in Taunton. And like I said, we are also certified operators in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Next slide. So in case of emergency, these are the actual pictures of our gas station from Taunton, just to let everybody know what happens in case of emergency, what our employees are supposed to do, and they are trained to do that. There are 2 switch right next to the registers where the employees are working, next to the POS system. One is the fire system switch, and another is the emergency shut-off switch. So in case of any fire, all they have to do is just reach out and shut off the switch, which will stop the gas flow from the tanks to the dispenser and also cut off the power. And the fire system switch, it dispenses the fire suppressant from the canopy, the gas station canopy. There are the fire suppressant system. As soon as the switch is on, the suppressants will work from the canopy, and the fire department will be alarmed. So in a matter of seconds. And there are also the spills that are the small spills that occur because of the dispensing. There are grooves and pavements that handle the spills. And there are spill containment equipments that are present right at the counter and in the storage area that can handle small spills. And the employees are trained how to take care of the spills in case while dispensing gas, the customer spills something on the ground. It's not staying there. They are taken care of as soon as they are brought into attention, or the customer can sometimes come inside and say, oh, there's a spill, or the employee goes out and check, and they use this special spill containment kits to handle the spills, and they're not thrown away in the trash. They know what to do with after containing the spills. And there's also a stop fuel button at the POS system that will stop the fuel from the dispenser right away. So employees can handle the spills before the station starts again to pump gas. On top of all this, our gas station systems, like it was discussed last year, is going to be the double wall system, which means it is continuously managing, testing if there are any spills, if the pipelines and the storage tanks are double wall. So if there is a leak, it will be still contained in the second wall before it is released to the environment. And between the two walls, there's a continuous monitoring system. So in the pipes and in the tanks itself. On top of that, we do daily inventory reconciliation. So say if the systems are not working, the line detection or anything goes wrong, we still we still reconcile our inventory every day. So if there is a release, the inventory, there will be a huge difference in inventory and we'll know it the next day. But these systems are, the detection systems and everything are also checked by a third party. We don't do it ourselves. We call and they make sure everything is operating and maintaining properly. Thank you.
Next slide, please.
Good evening. For the record, Hussein Sevinchkid with Greenman Peterson, Inc., out of Salem, New Hampshire. I'm a fuel system design engineer. We went over the fuel system pretty extensively last time. Ekta mentioned that there are double wall storage, fiberglass storage tanks proposed, and we do have double wall piping proposed. And all that piping goes into a containment sump that's above the tank. Again, we went over most of that. The fire suppression system is mandated by the state. But basically, of course, it's not working. So the first item is, so the proposed fuel system will be designed to maximize safety and minimize any potential environmental impacts. We design everything per Mass DEP 310 CMR 80. It's the UST system regulations that Massachusetts has. In addition to US EPA underground storage tank regulations, I failed to mention in there, we also design it per NFPA. NFPA 30 and 30A kind of regulates fuel systems. The site will be designed to prevent releases. Per what we had previously submitted, there was a proposed fuel system component and safety measure document that was submitted. That went into all of the items that we're proposing for this facility. And that was also discussed at the previous meeting. One of the items was vapors coming out of these fuel systems. Back in the day, there were issues with vapors, extensive, vapor release from the tanks. Back in 2015, well, I'll get into that. So the site would be designed to comply with Mass DEP Stage 1 Vapor Recovery Program. It's 310 CMR 7.0. That was adopted back in 2015. So prior to 2015, there wasn't really a good way to design these sites to basically protect the environment, the air quality. So it's a stage 1 or enhanced vapor recovery system. So a lot of the design components of the UST system, which is an underground storage tank system, would be implemented on this facility. Mass DEP regulations are based on California's Air Resource Board, which is CARB, Stage 1 EVR system and components. So that came out. Starge, brief history on CARB is they came out decades ago. It was formed to aggressively address the issues that California had with air pollution. If you all recall, there was a lot of smog in California. Since the implementation of this, the air quality hasn't improved in California. So basically what happens is when the fuel delivery truck is dropping fuel to the storage tanks, they hook up to a fill containment container, a bucket, spill bucket we call it, hook up to that, and the vapors, they also hook up to another vapor bucket that's provided on every single tank compartment. So there's 3 tank compartments here. As they're dropping, the fuel vapors are coming back into the trunk. So there's nothing going into the environment. And again, at the last meeting, I mentioned that, prior to 2015, there was no protection. So as they were fueling, there was vapors coming out of the fill ports into the environment. So again, this implementation of this stage 1 EVR systems in 2015 has drastically improved the air quality coming from these gas stations due to the fuel delivery. The next slide. At the previous ZBA meeting, there was discussion about a 300 to 500 foot setback on many of the reference documents that were submitted by the abutters. The 300-foot reference in many of the documents were from, can be traced back to an air quality and land use handbook. So CARB established, they published air quality handbook back in 2005, kind of looking at everything in California, the country of California. So they looked at everything, and they did establish a 300-foot setback, and that's recommended from large gas dispensing facilities. So this would be throughput exceeding 3.6 million gallons per year. However, in the CARB document, for smaller gas dispensing facilities, which is similar to what we're proposing here, they recommend a 50-foot separation from the gas facility to any abutting residential properties, in which, you know, we meet that. So we're providing more than 50 feet, and the site is projected to sell about 1 million gallons per year. It's not a high flow area. The gas stations probably at the intersections, you know, further down the street are high pumping facilities on, you know, major thoroughfares. The articles that were referenced were, again, for larger gasoline stations. I did do some research, and they're cluster gas stations. The cluster gas stations have more impacts than a single isolated gas station would. And the site, again, the site will utilize double wall fiberglass tanks. Fiberglass is inherently corrosion proof. The older tanks, prior to like the 80s and 90s, actually prior to the 90s, they were using a lot of double wall steel tanks and single wall fiberglass tanks. So the double wall tanks, I think we went through it last time. I had a sample. I didn't bring that this time, but you know, there's an interstitial space between the two walls that's constantly monitored. Any breach in either wall, instantaneously the alarms go off. They shut down everything, and you know, again, in that document that we had submitted, there's procedures that need to be followed. Other gas stations in town are located in the Canoe River ACAC. Most of the tanks are constructed of double wall fiberglass, and I don't think there's been any issues with those. The next slide. So again, my company, we design fuel systems for a lot of gas station clients all throughout New England. We do work in New York, down the East Coast, all the way down to Florida. New Hampshire DES, which is one of the more stringent New England states, they actually have a process where you submit plans, the state reviews them, and you kind of go back and forth until you get the plans, you know, up to snuff. So we do a lot of the work in New Hampshire, which helps our designs in other states that aren't as they're regulated, but they're not overseen. So there's no oversight during construction. New Hampshire has that. We provide that for our clients. We come out, we make sure the installer is doing it right, testing, making sure it's installed correctly. However, New Hampshire, they did a study back in 2022 that looked at double wall tanks installed from 2012 to 2021. This is on the New Hampshire DES website. So in the 10-year period, there was about 562 double wall underground fuel storage tanks installed and of those tanks, 0% have become leaking underground storage tanks, so LUSTs. USTs are now required to have better technology, including double wall construction. So prior to 2012, there were older tanks in the ground. A few years back, Mass required that all single wall tanks be removed from a lot of the sites, single wall steel tanks, I believe. So again, it's progressing, and this site design would basically protect the environment. Again, we do this on a lot of sites. I haven't seen double wall tanks fail, but again, we do it, that's what I do every day. So I understand your concerns, but again, what the system that we're proposing on this site isn't something you would see, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And again, the fuel system design that we submitted kind of highlights all of the advanced technologies. There's overfill protection, sumps underground under the dispensers. Some of the sites that are still around don't have that type of containment. And all the piping is sloping back to sumps. If there is an issue with piping, everything's going into a contained sump that has an alarm. Back in the day, they used to just bring the pipes right out from underground. That's pretty much it.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, members of the audience. For the record, Sean Kelly with Chapel Engineering, the traffic engineers in the project. If it pleases the board, what I'd like to do tonight is take a few minutes to walk you through some of the additional information we pulled together as it relates to traffic. At the last hearing, there were a number of comments issued by the neighborhood relative to traffic. A lot of the comments are very similar. We've gone out and done some additional work. We've done some additional analyses, and I'd just like to present those findings and be happy to answer any questions you might have. So I think the comments that were raised really distilled down to three specific things. The first was there was some concern that when we did our initial traffic study, it was done during the summertime. That was when we were cut loose to do the work. We did counts during summer conditions, so public schools weren't in session. I was pointing out at the last hearing, we did do the study in accordance with industry guidelines. We looked at seasonal adjustment factors, and to the extent that there was any need to adjust the traffic, we did so. But I think the comments that were raised by the neighborhood were certainly valid, with that the counts that we didn't include school traffic, didn't include bus traffic, and sometimes the specific movements may be different, even though the seasonal adjustment factors are applied. So what we did is we went out in April and we did all new counts. We counted in the morning 7 to 9, we counted in the evening 4 to 6, and then we actually counted the hours in between, and I'll get to the reason for that in a minute. What we found were that the PM volumes, frankly, were actually lower in April than they were in the summer. The AM volumes were a little bit higher. There were some additional cars turning off of Highland Street eastbound, a little more traffic on Foundry as well. But we used those new volumes as the basis for the analysis that we prepared and submitted. The second comment that we received was that we didn't account for growth in traffic, that there's frankly, in layman's terms, a lot of things going on in town, residential development. There were a couple of different projects that were cited, including the Avalon residential development. We did reach out to the planning staff again to get a handle as to what's in the pipeline, either proposed or under construction, to ensure that we had captured it all. We did that during the first study as well, and we were informed that there really wasn't much going on besides some small subdivisions. That was again confirmed by planning staff that there's nothing really major in the area being built. The Avalon development, those units are all built. They're all occupied. They were occupied when we did our traffic counts, so any traffic associated with those projects would already be cooked into the numbers that we collected when we did our counts. So that was the second comment. We ran all the analyses again, looking at the impacts, using those higher volumes in the morning, again, accounting for growth in traffic independent of the project, plus the project-related impacts. And again, the findings of the initial study remain relatively unchanged, that the project itself is not expected to result in a notable increase in delays or queuing, particularly at the intersection of Foundry and Highland. Next slide. And the last thing we were asked to take a look at, and I think the genesis of this comment was I believe that at some point in time, there may have been some construction activities in the area where a temporary traffic signal was put in place at the intersection of Foundry and Highland. And I think for the residents that travel that intersection frequently and live in the area, there was a level of convenience in terms of getting onto Foundry from Highland due to that traffic signal. So we were asked to take a look and see, is a traffic signal a viable option in terms of traffic control? Is it something that could be done in conjunction with this project? And what we did is we performed what's known as a traffic signal warrant analysis. It's an analysis it's a federal guideline. It's basically to put a traffic signal up, you need to meet a certain volume criteria. There has to be a certain amount of traffic on the main line, Foundry Street, and then also a certain amount of traffic on the side street, which would be Highland. Really, there are three warrants that we take a look at. The first is what we call the 8-hour warrant, where you have to meet a certain level of volume for 8 hours of the day. They don't have to be continuous. They can skip around, but you have to meet 8 hours. Then there's a 4-hour warrant, which again has a certain level of traffic you need to meet, higher than the 8-hour because it's a smaller window. And then lastly, there's a peak hour warrant, which looks at basically just 1 hour to justify a signal. The peak hour warrant is typically only used for things such as a large office complex where for the majority of the day it wouldn't be warranted, but there's that 1 hour in the evening where everyone's leaving to go home and it justifies putting up a signal. It's very rare that that's utilized. The 4-hour and 8-hour warrant are more typical, and quite frankly, Mass DOT really wants you to meet the 8-hour warrant, and they're unlikely to approve a signal if it doesn't meet the 8-hour warrant. Would note that this is not a Mass DOT intersection. Vance? This right here, and I won't walk through all of this, it'll probably put you to sleep, but these are the charts and the graphs that just show the volumes. And again, we look at the mainline volume in terms of how much traffic's on Foundry. We look at the side street volume in terms of what's on Highland. And we've taken all the volumes we collected, adjusted for growth, adjusted for traffic associated with the project, and then ran the numbers. Next slide. And here, these are the results right here. Again, if you look at warrant 3, the peak hour warrant, we don't meet that warrant during any hour of the day. Warrant 2, the 4-hour warrant, we have to meet for 4 hours. We only meet it for 1 hour. And then warrant 1, the 8-hour warrant, which really, again, is the one that you really want to meet to justify putting in a light. We meet the volume for a couple of hours, 3 hours, but you don't meet it for the full 8 hours. And again, just to reiterate, these aren't guidelines where we can make an engineering judgment, well, it's not warranted, but let's put it in anyways. It's actually not legal to install a traffic signal unless these warrants are met. And again, we've looked at it from every which way, with utilizing the higher counts. And again, we just don't meet that criteria. So a signal is not warranted here. So in a nutshell, the three things that we did, we did new counts, used the higher AM volumes, a little bit higher in the morning. We checked again with the town to look at other projects. I think some of the major residential developments that were cited by the neighbors at the last meeting, quite frankly, have already been built, and those volumes are already traveling on the corridor, so we've already taken them into account through our data collection process. And we did a thorough review of the signal warrants at the intersection of Foundry and Highland, which indicate that under no situation would a signal be warranted there, either under current conditions or in the future with this project. And that's pretty much all I have for tonight. Thank you.
So again, thanks everybody. My name is Michael Mattis. I'm with Atlantic Valuation. I would have worked on the feasibility and the market study work for this year. So I only got a couple of slides. I just really want to kind of reinforce a few points that there were some comments that came back, really around competition and the benefits to the community as a whole. First off, from a competition perspective, again, I just want to highlight here, you can notice that within those green circles, if you look at the density of petroleum retailers in there, what this does is this creates, basically a headbutting situation between all the retailers to grab market share. In order to do this, they have to be competitive with their petroleum pricing. If you notice within the red circle here, we don't have that happening. There is no reason that this petroleum retailer has to compete for petroleum pricing with anybody. Okay, these markets all fall outside of the typical range that we'd be driving for gasoline. As such, we can see right in here, and this is, again, I did this last week. I checked on this almost weekly, again today. Okay, they are priced higher than everybody else in the market. Okay, this is going to take money out of your pockets. Okay, maybe not all yours directly, but it is impacting people within the community. And these are the reasons why you see new gas stations going up. And again, I noticed that there was some comments brought in about going in Taunton, which Taunton, again, different market area. Somebody had sent in something about 2 new stations going up. But the thing that highlighted in that the most to me is how excited the residents were to see these new gas stations going up, because all of a sudden there's going to be more competition. Okay, there's going to be an impact to pricing. This puts money back in their pockets. Okay, so this is the first thing that we see within the pricing side of it all. If you go to the next slide. Okay, the reason why this happens is because if you'll notice here, Highland Variety, okay, this is the yellow, this is the subject site that we're talking about here. The pink is All Towns, which is really the primary competitor. Five Corners is not a convenience store there, not a competitor.
Okay, if you're going there, it's most likely because you have a relationship with the owner. You know, you're using the mechanical services and stuff like that. You're not saying to yourself, oh, hey, I'm just gonna go run out, you know, go fill up my gas here, you know, pumping all this. You know, you typically would go over to the All Town, or when you're leaving the community area, you're going and you're filling up outside of the community. Why are you filling up outside of the community? Because the gas price is cheaper. Okay, so you take and you go outside of it, okay? So in general, most of us are not driving 4 miles in one distance to get gas. The reason is because as soon as you do that, that means you're turning your gas trip into a 20 to 25-minute trip. Because if you do the speed limit, you're talking 7 to 10 minutes each direction, okay? That's why these gas stations on the other side of Easton, over in Taunton, okay, they are not considered competitors, okay, because they fall outside of the typical market area where you would see a competitor. Okay. Next slide. All right. Then again, from an economic impact, okay, we don't think of nickels and pennies as adding up much, but they do. And as a community, you have 3, 4, 5, 6 million gallons of gasoline going out your door. Okay, that's being all purchased here. And I get it. You're saying to yourself, okay, why does it really matter? You know, 15, you know, gallons, 50 cents a gallon. It's $7.50 a gas tank. That's great when you're making 100, 150 grand a year. But what about the people working down at Target, Starbucks, all the ones that are supporting us in our community, our teachers, stuff like that? Those people are not. They benefit from having these lower gas prices. This is putting money back into their pockets. And that's all we're trying to do here, is we're just trying to say, hey, how do you start opening up some of this competition here and create a benefit for the community, okay? Over the last few years, and again, I wanted to bring these back to highlight them from last time, is you can notice there that gas margins are going up. The reason why gas margins are going up is because quality competition is going away, okay? All these new to industry convenience stores you see going up, there's a reason why a lot of them are being built, is because they know that they can go out and eat up all these little guys. And while they're doing it, they're enriching themselves, okay? And they're increasing the margins of themselves. Gasoline volumes aren't changing. Okay, everybody keeps focusing on all this hybrids. Oh, we're going hybrid. Okay, I'm not going to disagree that there isn't going to be a change with EVs out there. But if you'll notice, what are most of them doing? They all want EV hybrid models. They all have realized that having a gas model with your EV right now is much more reasonable because we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the cost in place. You know, all we're going to be doing is slowly making a trade-off for gas prices to electric prices. Because again, we don't have, you know, the infrastructure built out yet to make it all happen for everybody. So all we're doing is we need to find a way to put money back into the pockets of people that need it. And this is one of the ways to do it for your community. I mean, again, we got to think of everybody, not just, you know, those of us that, you know, can go out there and don't care about spending an extra $1,000 a year on gas because we'll pay the higher prices, okay? And then the last thing that I wanted to show is that, you know, there's always a lot of talk about what's going on in sensitive areas and where do people build things. This top picture to the left is a 1 million gallon tank farm that's built basically on a floodplain. Never had any problems with it. Thing's been there forever. I would promise you, they were just as unhappy as possibly all of those people there down in Weymouth that had all those tank farms put up, had a petroleum gas station put right into their neighborhood. But why did they do it? Because of the economic benefit, not just of their community, but of this community too. Because if we don't have people that are willing to go out and put infrastructure in places like this, then it starts driving up the cost for everybody. You know, we sit here and we don't think about, you know, many of us still heat with home heating oil, okay? The reason why home heating oil costs go down in communities over time is because they can get more storage. Those of us that want to heat with things like natural gas and propane, the reason why those costs keep going up is because we need more storage. Okay, the way that we can control some of these prices and put money, you know, back into the community is by allowing there to be storage and having another gas station, you know, so that way there's more, you know, available gas for people to go and extract. Okay, so again, you know, these are just some examples out there. One last thing I'll just mention to you all is that I get the opportunity to work with a lot of college students. I teach at a college. I teach personal financial planning. The reason why I enjoy going around and doing some of this, for as much as some of you all sit here and laugh at me and make faces at me and all of this, is because I get to work with a lot of your kids that are going to college. You know, I get to understand and listen to them when they're coming out and they're telling me, hey, I'm making 25 bucks an hour trying to figure out how I'm going to pay $2,000 of rent, health insurance, car insurance, you know, my student loans, just try to make any of this work. You know, and I get to sit there and work with them and explain to them, yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, we're working on nickels and dimes to make your life better. And all of these little incremental dollars that they get to add back into their budget makes a big difference to them. And I'd be willing to bet we could probably find a lot of them that come out here right now, but the problem is a lot of them are working, you know, because it is the hours that they have to work and stuff because, you know, they're in school all day and stuff like that. You know, so I'm just asking, you know, think about some of these other, you know, situations out there and how this impacts them, impacts their pockets too, and not just all of us. Okay, I think that's it. So anyways, thank you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
This is just a slide to address some of the information that was implied by the opposition at the last hearing. It was implied that a lot of the petitions that were signed in favor of this project lived in the northern part of town. So this is just showing some of the residents that signed in support. 257 were Easton, 19 on Highland, 23 on Foundry. You'll see, as indicated in yellow, those are all of the residents signed in support that within less than or equal to a half mile. There's 25. And then within less than or equal to a mile are shown in pink. They're not all shown on there because it was hard to get the entire area, but those are 56. So this is just to show that we do have support for this project as indicated in our signed petitions. Next slide, please. Fiscal, we already went through this at the last hearing. There's just the new information as far as the fiscal impact in the sense that although the taxes from this business or fuel taxes don't go directly to the town, they do go to the state. And it's being used for road spending and infrastructure improvements. So as you can see here, 32.2% of Massachusetts state and local road spending was actually covered by gasoline and license taxes in 2016. So it does go to the improvements of the infrastructure and the roadways, the state roadways, and some of the local road spending. A new building would also, as I mentioned last time, with new uses and amenities, would increase the property taxes. That does impact the town based off of those improvements. And the gas station, retail, and office spaces that are being proposed will allow for new employment opportunities to the area. Although minimal, every job counts. Next slide, please. Mitigation of neighborhood impacts. So there was some accusations that we were not proposing any mitigation to the neighborhood that's surrounding or around this site. This proposal is within a business zone district. It's not a residential zoning district. However, my clients do understand and recognize there are residents that are here and that are residents that are near the site. So they've been making efforts in this proposal to try to mitigate anything that they can think of that would impact them. Noise and lighting concerns, for instance. So as I mentioned last time, petitioner is maintaining their current hours of operation. We're not looking to do this huge commercialized business of 24 hours a day of gas station. We're looking to keep the current hours of their business that they have now, and that's what you see here. Monday through Saturday, 6 to 10, and Sundays, 7 to 9. They also have, as you heard earlier from my client, they have a professional relationship with their vendors and their fuel business contractors that deliver the fuel because they've been doing this for a while. So they've been able to maintain a relationship with these companies, and that allows them the flexibility to control when the deliveries will be and how often. They expect 1 delivery per week, as I had mentioned, 2 at most if necessary, but they expect 1 per week. And they can request those delivery times to be outside of peak traffic hours and within a reasonable time just in consideration of the neighbors that are there. We're also proposing a non-LED sign, as I mentioned last time, where the numbers would have to be changed manually. So we're not looking at this big, bright, lit-up sign with LED numbering. And we're also proposing a new landscape screening that would help buffer the sound and the visuals from the site as well. Next slide, please.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brianna. Mr. Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals and the residents that are here today. At the last meeting, there was some questions about FHA and FHVA funding and insurance. So we reached out to some of our lending experts here in the town of Easton, and they were able to provide us with the regulations on underground storage tanks and above-ground storage tanks. And as you can see, the regulation really changed, I think, in October of '22, where that 300-foot distance that was brought up is really now for only above-ground stationary storage tanks. At this proposed location and this proposed gas station, we have none of that. I said that the regulation changed in 2002, And then there was some questions about, I'm going to live near a gas station and I won't be able to get insurance. There is nothing that prohibits an insurance company from providing insurance to anybody who is abutting a gas station within 300 feet or 500 feet or even next door to it. Even for the people who have, haven't paid their insurance and had to have it reinstated, there is the FAIR plan in the state of Massachusetts. So all of these people have the ability to get insurance no matter where they live, whether they're 5 feet from a gas station or 1,000 feet from a gas station. And then as we showed last time, the architectural design of the building, Jamie Hughes is not here this evening, but I'll play architect. And when this project came to our office, AJ and Hector came to us and said, what do we do? How do we do this? And I said, well, one of the things is we need to have a New England style looking type of a building. We cannot have a standard mobile or a Cumberland Farms type of a canopy. It has to look somewhat like a house that's from New England. So Jamie took that idea and took our input, and this is what he came up with. So the awning will have those faux A-frame areas on top of the roof. There'll be faux dormers as well with windows, and there'll be some brick bottom to the structure as well. And as you can see, the landscaping in and around the building, and you can actually see the bumpers that are required by the Planning and Zoning Board for site plan approval. And as Brianna mentioned in her last slide and presentation, this is what we're looking at as the proposed sign at the front of the site. It will be ground lit, and you can see the light at the bottom of the sign with a little bit of a brick base, and this will not be LED lit, will not have any flashing to it, and will only have one light on one side and one light on the other side that will shine up onto the sign. And then this is just, again, the special permit plan that we originally proposed that we submitted with the application. And then, again, the drainage patterns that I talked about in the beginning with the high points and how the flow of the stormwater from the front of the site where the fuel dispensary area would be, as well as the underground storage tank, flows away from the Aquifer Protection District and our rain garden in the back of the site. And then, as Brianna mentioned in her last slide too, is the upgrade to the landscaping design and the screening. So we've taken those comments and we have updated the landscaping plan to show where some of that screening would be at the front of the site and the existing trees that would remain in the darker green to the north and to the west of the site. And that's what we have, Mr. Chairman.
Before we open up to the questions in the board, I just wanted to add there was an opposition that was submitted yesterday in regards to the 2 new gas stations in Taunton that were referenced, and there was a claim that they were not considered in our market analysis. I just want to clarify, there were 2 gas stations just approved in Taunton. As Mike had mentioned, they are outside of the market. They have not been built yet. I was actually on the team for one of them, the 1925 and 1939 Bay Street. That is near BJ's in Taunton, if you're familiar with that area. That is under construction right now. But I just wanted to note that that is in the Aquifer Protection District. That was approved by the Planning Board in Taunton in June 2023, and it had 22 conditions attached. So that board wanted to make sure they had control over what was being done to that site, and they did that in the 22 conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions as the team here for my client, and we thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Who wants to go first? Okay, Jean.
Thank you. Would you be willing, sir, since you're at the podium, through the chairman, of course. To go back to the slide a few before that shows the arrows leading to the aquifer. So you mentioned that the flow is away from the aquifer. Now, I see the green line this is the river, is this the Canoe River?
No, this is the Aquifer Protection Overlay District line that comes through the back of the site. So the aquifer protection is this way.
I understand, but are we not looking at some arrows that are going into that area? What am I
Yeah,
missing?
this is the high point of the site. This is where, so if it started to rain here, this stormwater goes here to the rain guardian and into the bioretention system to the rear of the site. If the stormwater is up here, these arrows come this way to this basin. These arrows flow this way to the trench drain to the water quality structure.
Okay, so I'm a little slow, so if you could just help me for a second.
Not a problem.
Well, it is for me. That's okay. So, I said, isn't the green line is the delineation of the aquifer protection?
That is correct.
Right? Is this the Canoe River? Is this the Canoe River aquifer?
Okay. So the Canoe River and the Hockomo, you're talking about an ACEC.
ACEC.
This is not in the ACEC.
Does this aquifer have a particular name? Or is
It's just the Aquifer Protection District.
Okay. So what am I missing about the fact that I'm looking at arrows that are going into that
Okay,
arrow?
so what we try, through the chair, so there was questions about, oh, the stormwater is going to take the gas that's spilled and it's going to go into the drainage and it's going to go right into the ground.
Yeah.
So what we did was show where the flow of the stormwater was going away from the Aquifer Protection District. So this here is the Aquifer Protection District from here to the west. Now, if there was a spill over here and the storm and it rained, the stormwater flow would bring it to the front of the site, which is outside of the Aquifer Protection District, and then treated with the trench drain and the water quality structure and the rain guardian. So the protection of the Aquifer Protection District is being done by keeping the fuel storage and the building outside of that district. There's nothing prohibiting putting a drainage basin in a parking lot in an Aquifer Protection District, nothing. As long as we can meet the performance standards of the stormwater rules and regulations and the Town of Easton stormwater rules and regulations, which we are going to do and can do, because we're already demonstrating that we're doing that, then that's what can be approved by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission.
So if I could just stick again with the arrows for a second.
Sure.
A layperson. You're suggesting then from this, or telling me directly, that whatever's flowing in that direction would not be contaminated because the high point is at some other place?
That is correct. So here's where you'd pull it. You would come in here, you'd drive your car, and you'd pull onto this side of the tank of the dispensary or this side.
Yeah.
So if there was a spill here, and there was fuel on the concrete, and it rained, and the water flowed in that area, the water would take the fuel, if there was anything left, and bring it to the front of the site, not towards the Aquifer Protection District. So does that answer your question through the chair?
Can I add on to that question?
Yes, sir.
What happens to the water in the front of this, the station?
Okay.
When it rains, it goes into the ground in a
Right, so
rain
when it
garden.
rains in the front here, so the stormwater flow comes from this high point here, this way into the rain garden, and then this way to the trench drain, captures it here, comes through here to this manhole into the water quality structure, and then will outlet into this rain guardian.
And then where does it go?
There's an overflow into the town drainage system, because there's a drainage easement in the front here.
So just to follow up though, my first question said, are we okay? I'm sorry.
No,
done
go
that?
ahead.
No, just that, similarly, that was my next
Mm.
question, is that we're talking about recharging?
Yes, and
And is that an 80% number up there? Does that mean that some of the stormwater runoff is not going to be recharged on site?
well, we're actually reducing the flow. So we've done a drainage design that says X amount of water goes off the site untreated right now. to Foundry Street. And the town is very well aware of that. We're reducing the amount of water that is going to the town system with this design. So we're going to have infiltration, and on the larger storms, there will be some flow into the existing drainage system, but not to the volume that is there now, far less.
Based on what? Based on the fact that you built that area surrounding it sort of orange there?
Right here?
Yes.
Yes. So, because right now, if you look at the site and you look at the existing conditions, there are 0 stormwater controls. There's a catch basin that takes this entire site and puts it right into Foundry Street.
But there's no fuel currently.
But,
Please, everyone.
Correct? I mean,
through the chair,
Yeah.
there's no fuel. However, there's nothing treating the stormwater that goes to Foundry Street right now, 0. So with this development, you have infiltration, you have recharge to the groundwater, you have protection of the aquifer protection, you have advanced TSS removal up to 90%, and you bring a site that is not compliant into full compliance with the stormwater rules and regulations of this town and the state DEP's rules and regulations.
Okay, but am I correct, however, that what is runoff, do you have a percentage? We were doing some percentages earlier. So if we're losing some percentage to the street that the town somehow knows about, then what is that percentage? And now that percentage that's still going into the street now has some potentially hazardous material, does it not? I mean, if it has a petroleum product.
No, there's no hazardous material or petroleum getting into your system, okay? We've got water quality structures. We've got 4 bays and rain guardians that when I showed that other picture through the chair with the plants that are in there, the plants are specific to a rain garden system that will help have the fuel or any type of contaminant that's in the stormwater, that the plants actually attract that stuff.
But it
So,
helps, but it doesn't prevent, right? So I'm just trying to get a sense of the percentage. Do we
okay,
have
so
numbers?
it does help and it does prevent, and we're following the rules and regulations of the town and the DEP for this design.
Thank you. And just to confirm again, this is not an AC, correct?
This is the Aquifer Protection District.
So when, I believe in the sign-offs, it indicated there will be wetlands permit. Will there be any wetlands?
Okay, so we through this, and we submitted for the record, and I want to make sure that the chairman and the zoning board do understand, we did submit a letter from our environmental consultant who was asked by the Concom agent, we were asked by the Concom agent to look at possible wetland impacts on the other side of Highland Street, sorry. I'm thinking of Fall River. Highland Street. This area here, we cannot access this property because we don't own it, and we cannot flag wetlands on anybody's abutting property, okay? That's, the only way we can do is drive by and look and stand on the street and look inside. When the botanist went there, he looked at it, he said it's probably isolated land subject to flooding from the drainage that's on Highland Street coming across the driveway that's here and into the low point on these people's property. So these people who live here are actually taking stormwater from Foundry and Highland Street onto their property.
So who was this botanist?
This is Brad from ERC. He's the botanist that we hired to come out here and take a look at it. So I spoke to Jennifer, the conservation agent, and I said, okay, well, if there's isolated land subject to flooding, based on the bylaw, there's buffer zones, so we'll file a notice of intent, which is also another checks and balances on stormwater design. So the Concom is going to send our design out and have it peer reviewed by whoever. And they're going to make sure that we conform to all of the rules and regulations of the stormwater rules and regulations of this town and the state.
Is it possible then that if you cannot comply with them, that even if
No, there would be nothing prohibiting us from making sure that we meet those regulations and the requirements of the Concom.
All right, thank you. Was it you who mentioned that there was not LED lighting?
That is correct.
Did you mean light emitting diode, or do you mean not internal?
Okay, so, yeah,
I
so
mean, I understand lighting.
we, both Brianna and I discussed the sign. So the sign is going to be a regular sign with manual types of lettering on it, only lit from the ground. So this isn't like Cumberland Farms where you have a big green LED diesel fuel and the red and
Okay, plenty of types of internal lit signs that aren't LED, for example. I just wanted to.
yeah, so this isn't going to be an internally lit sign.
Thank you. And
Yes, you're welcome.
This is for you. I think I'm wrapping up, Mr. Chairman. When there's no one on site in those hours between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., we've talked about all the procedures that the employees have training for, that the owners are certainly seem that they've trained and certified. But what happens between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. and 7 a.m.?
I'll have AJ or Acta answer that question.
So there,
Please use the microphone, yeah, thank you.
so between those hours, the dispensers and pumps are closed. Nothing could get out of the pumps. The pumps are not working. The flow is not there on the pumps.
So there's no possibility of a leakage of
No.
in a tank? That, I mean, is there any, you have other, you have something I saw where there are some sort of indicators that are sort of 24/7, are there not? Do you
Yes.
not have some sort of?
Yes.
And how do you get some sort of, how do you as the owner get indication on non-operating hours that there might be a malfunction?
So when there is this leak alarm that goes on in case on the non-operating hours.
Yeah.
So the fire department, our alarm system, they are working like the security system that we have at house. So we get phone calls in the middle of night. And with the fire department, if say we are sleeping and we do not pick up our phone, it goes directly to the emergency department too.
And what goes? I mean, who is?
The phone calls.
Is somebody to respond to the fact that there's some sort of leak or malfunction? Is that the idea?
Yes.
And how does the fire department know what it's to do in cases where there might be some sort of malfunction?
So
Hussein Sivichil for the record again. So there's a console located inside the store that monitors the entire fuel system 24/7, constantly monitoring it. If anything happens off-peak hours, you know, when the store is closed, it's still being monitored. Nothing's being utilized for it to be flowing. There's no product being delivered to anything. So the tank's idle. It's still being monitored, so if there is a leak, the alarm would go off, and I believe that you guys are cued into that with your POS system. So they would get a call. The fire department, if the fire department chooses to be on that, you know, notification list, would also get a record of that. However, if there is a leak, again, there are procedures that need to be followed. They would have to, within a certain time period, call Clean Harbors, you know, call the state police, call the fire department, call the police department. So again, there was a fuel system component memorandum that was submitted initially to the town. And on that, there's an emergency contact notification list of who exactly would get contacted. 911 would be called, the state Mass DEP emergency response team would be called, state police, the normal police. Ambulance could be called, and if there's, you know, something to that extent. Building department, DPW, and then if it's an extensive, you know, leak, which, again, it's a brand new system, there should be no issues with that. But again, there's Clean Harbors and all that. And again, the oil water separator, I just wanted to get back into it. If there's a leak, all of the, if there's a leak above ground, all of that would be contained in a big tank that's underground. So everything would flow into that tank. And it would be contained in one of the compartments.
And I do have a correction through the chair. So I was just picked up the memo from the wetland consultant. And yes, we are in the Canoe River ACEC. Okay, so I want to make sure the record is correct, that I misspoke. However, that only thing that does is makes our water quality volume treatment a little bit higher. Instead of a half an inch over the impervious area, we're required to have 1 inch of water quality volume over the impervious area. So that we can do with the system we've proposed on this plan.
Well, you say we can do, it's not currently planned, I mean,
It's
that we're in an ACDC now, or are we now looking at this differently?
No, we're not looking at this differently. We have the water quality volume in that structure, as well as the 4 bays that we're proposed.
So is this then, if this is indeed the Canoe River ACDC, I understand it's a single source aquifer, correct? So that it is the drinking supply for, that 50% of the residents or more use this as their single source, that there's not another source, is that correct?
In regards to single source, I'm not sure if it is a single source or not. However, more than 50% of Easton is in an ACEC. I don't know if this board knows that or not.
And if I may, through the chair, we did submit just today, just in response to one of the opposition's submittals, just a handout about ACECs from the DCR, and I just want to highlight that gas stations are not prohibited in the ACEC. There are actually a few projects that are prohibited, and that's the solid waste management facility, docks, and piers that I have noted through this handout that was provided by Brian's office. Thank you.
Great. All right, Mr. Hamburger.
I'm just curious to the difference in elevation between the two rain gardens. Driving by the site, it looks pretty level.
Right, so because we've done, through the chair, Mr. Chairman, so we've done soil testing out here for the septic system. We understand that the modeling in groundwater is pretty high. So most of this site would be filled, and then the drainage basins would be at the lowest point of the site. So this would be the highest point, this would be the lowest point, and then this would be the lowest point. So there will be, about 2 to 3 foot high grade change from the road to bring the building up higher, to make sure the septic system meets the separation of the Board of Health rules and regulations. So we have proposed these 2 basins at the lowest points of the site, which is what we call drainage 101. We never put drainage on the high point because water doesn't
flows
flow uphill.
So what is the difference in elevation between the two?
Okay, let me just look at the plan a little bit more. Hold on a second. Okay, so really the front elevation of the basin will be right around 181, and the one in the back around 179. So, and then the finished floor will be, of the building, will be 183. So that's the difference. So we've got, like I said, 183 here, 179, 181. So we're trying to tie back into, and you can see the 181 contour right here. So you can see the change. So it's about a 2 foot difference in elevation. However, this is at 181. This is at 179. So, but this is the higher point of the site, which makes sense because here is my high point, right here.
Yeah.
So this would be higher. This would be the low point. That would be a low point.
So there's only 2 feet of elevation difference.
Between the 2 basins, yes.
On the surface, what's the level of the groundwater?
The level that we're seeing it anywhere from 2 to 3 feet down. Because if you look at the existing septic system that's in this area here,
up at top.
it's raised already.
It's raised, yeah.
It's raised. So when you look at that, that's kind of the idea of where this site is going.
So the water level, I'm maybe being a little simple-minded here, is going to be at the same level between the two. The underground water level is going to be at the same level between the two rain gardens, wouldn't it be?
Well, we don't have, well, the separation to groundwater, yes, but we don't have to cut all the way down to the groundwater. We want to make sure we have enough separation for that basin to go in. So that's why they're at a little different elevations. So, because we've got tests here, we've got tests there. So where the tests fall, and we make sure where the groundwater and modeling is, then we make the separation from there. So one could be a little bit higher in the ground here than it is in the back. And we had those tests witnessed by the Board of Health, Mr. Chairman. And just if I follow up on this too, is that if we get past here, we go to planning, we go to the Conservation Commission, and there's 2 more shots at someone looking at our plans. Did we cross the Ts and dot the Is? And further conditions from the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. I think, what did Brianna, how many conditions did you have on the gas station? 22. So I've seen a single-family house in Brockton get 99 conditions. So there's a way to permit things, make sure that it meets the intent of the regulations, and protect the residents, protect the groundwater supply that's here, and bring a site into full conformance with those regulations, Mr. Chairman.
My other couple of questions was on the volume of the gas station. Now, it was said that there'd be about 1 delivery per week. And as my memory is correct, the tankers hold about 9,000 gallons. So, and then somebody mentioned that this size gas station does about 1.5 million gallons a year. If I do simple math, it comes out to about 3 deliveries a week if they do that volume. There seems to be some difference in the numbers.
No, we are budgeting
Microphone, please.
about 500 to 600,000 gallons. What other site we have in New Hampshire is the same, similar to this site. It's about 500 to 600,000 gallons.
And gas tanks, just the tank for the regular is going to be 10,000 gallons. Then there is another tank for premium and another for diesel. So it's not just 10,000 gallons.
I'm talking about the delivery tanker.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it can deliver like 11,500 gallon per delivery. So that per week is like 50,000 gallons per month, which is what we are estimating based on our 2 gas stations in New Hampshire, which are located in similar situation in neighborhood. The one in Taunton is on the highway, and that's where we are doing 800,000, 900,000 gallon a year. We haven't crossed 1 million gallons yet, and that's a highway.
Yeah.
And this is not that kind of location. So we are estimating around 500,000, 600,000 gallons a year. We're not even estimating more than that. Thank you.
Let me do a little bit more math. So that's about 3,000 cars buying gas a month. I'm figuring roughly 15 gallons per car.
I think she's just speaking off of their experience running
Pardon? I'm a little hard of hearing.
That's okay. So they're just speaking from their experience running the 2 gas stations in New Hampshire, similar to this size.
Yeah.
That they've been running those since 2008 and 2015. So that's just based off of their experience and their numbers they've had there. I don't think they do the calculations specifically for the site, but they're basing it off of their experience.
The other comment, would you be interested in just reconstructing the existing building without the gas permits?
Have her answer that. That's, I mean, that's what we're here for tonight.
Yeah,
It would be a
okay.
significant improvement for their business, and all of the other proposals that we have as a part of it too, with the retail and the office. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've done my time.
Okay.
I don't have any questions right now.
I have a few. I guess since that map is up there, perhaps I'll start there. Though the arrows depicted on that map show, I believe you described it as stormwater runoff and the directions that it would go in. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, through the chair. The arrows show the flow of storm water if it rained.
Okay. Those arrows don't show, I'm going to use the term groundwater gradient. In other words, they don't show the flow of groundwater beneath the station, correct?
We have not done a groundwater mapping of the site because it's something that's really not required. We would do that if, I don't even know why we would do that.
Okay, well, the service station is going to be located within, what, 100 feet or so of the boundary between the aquifer, correct?
Yes.
And in the event that, well, I'll put the question this way. This directional flow just shows the surface. It doesn't show the groundwater. So if something were to, some pollutant, contaminant, were to get into the groundwater on this site, this map isn't going to show us what direction the groundwater goes in, correct?
That's correct.
And for all you know, the groundwater goes directly into that aquifer. I know you don't know the answer to it.
I couldn't tell you whether it goes north, south, east, or west right now.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, if I couldn't, Mr. Chairman, just came to my mind. Sure. We would do a groundwater mapping if we were going to do something that required a well for a public water supply, or if we were doing a transfer station or a C&D transfer station, and we needed a state permit for site suitability. That is one of the requirements of a groundwater mapping. A gas station or an office building or a retail building is not required to do that. And even though we are in an ACEC, there are no other permits that are required just because we're in an ACEC.
I understand. So in other words, you're not required to do it under the existing guidelines.
There is no requirement for us to do a groundwater mapping in the regulations for this type of a project. Like I said, through the chair, if this was a transfer station and I was going for a site suitability through the DEP's office in Lakeville, that would be one of the requirements to show the groundwater flow of the site.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
And I don't know, maybe this would be a question for you, Mrs. Patel, when you were giving your original presentation, or your comments, excuse me. You said that there are, with respect to spills and training, that there are third-party checks for, is that for the training or for the equipment?
No, the third-party checks is something that we are not required by law, but we do that anyways at our Taunton facility, where all this, the testing, the system that is installed between the double wall that handles the leaks and everything, they are tested every month by third parties. So make sure everything, all our, there's no wear and tear on our dispensers, our sumps are fine, neat and clean, there's no debris. And all these inspections that our employees or we are supposed to do, we give it to third parties and they do it. So they're experienced people and they make sure our facilities are in good shape and all the systems and equipments that handles the leak detection are working and fine in place.
Okay, I think you answered my question, because I'm not sure you said how often the checks,
They are done monthly.
monthly.
We are
And-
supposed to do monthly. The owners are supposed to do, the employees, managers are supposed to do, but we give that to a third party who are more experienced and trained, and they handle it.
And what kind of third party is it that does these checks?
So there's a company called CTS. This company is registered by MES DEP to do our annual inspections. They handle our monthly inspections as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Forgive me, I'm going to mispronounce your name. Is it Mr. Savicum?
Just say
So
Hus-
I don't get to ask a question unless I get
just
your
say,
name right?
Say Hussein. Hussein is fine.
Hussein.
No worries.
So just for the record, how do you say it?
The right way? Okay.
Yes, the right way. I want to make sure I get it right.
Hüseyin Sevinçgil.
Shavinskin.
Close.
Okay, I'm not going to try that again, sir.
None of my teachers ever could pronounce it.
You had mentioned when you were discussing the tanks that the space, because it's a double fiberglass tank, and there's a space between the two that I believe you said is filled with some kind of brine.
Yeah.
And that's kept at a low temperature.
I don't know about the temperature, but it's a double wall fiberglass tank.
Right.
You can picture like a cardboard box, right? The little
Right.
honeycomb, that's the interstitial space between the two layers of the fiberglass that are in the tank.
Right.
And basically they put a brine solution, it's like antifreeze, in that interstitial space. And on top of the tank, there's a reservoir that's filled. It's filled up to the top of the reservoir. And on top of that, there's a riser to grade with a monitor, that's a sensor that's put in there. So that sensor will detect any fluctuations in that level. So that level is, let's say 6 inches from the, top of the reservoir. It should always be 6 inches. If there's an increase, that means that something's coming in to that interstitial space. If there's a decrease, something's going out. So it's constantly monitored.
Yeah, in fact, that's when you said that. That's kind of where I was leading to. You said that the space between the two tanks is constantly monitored. Maybe I missed it. Could you explain to me again how it's monitored constantly? Like,
So inside of every gas station, there's a monitoring system. All these sensors, probes, anything that's associated with the tanks or the fuel system are monitored by that system. It's I don't know what you guys use, Vita-Root or the Evo. There's like 3 or 4 different manufacturers. And in there, it monitors that interstitial. So in that interstitial reservoir, there's a sensor, 12-inch sensor that's in there, and that detects any, like I said, any fluctuations in that reservoir. So that reservoir, the whole tank is basically, double wall fiberglass. Any fluctuations there, it's detected. The product piping has a line leak detector that's constantly monitoring the pressure in that product piping that goes to your dispenser when you're fueling. So if there's any fluctuation in that, the alarm goes off and it says, hey, line leak detector's failed or whatever. The sensors under the dispensers and on top of the tank sumps, there's large containment, I can't think now, devices. So it's a containment sump, I'm sorry, I use the word every day and it went away from me. It's a sump under the dispenser and on top of the tank. That also has a sensor, and if there's any fluid coming in to that, it should be dry all the time. If there's anything coming into that sensor will go off. It's all mandated by Mass DEP and the EPA. There was a question earlier, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
About the gallons. In my presentation, I said 1.5, I think, was what CARB indicates is a smaller facility maybe. This one I said was estimated at 1 million gallons a year. I'm just an engineer. I don't know how much they're going to sell, but they've kind of indicated that it's around 600,000.
Okay. And did you or somebody say earlier that there's never been an example of these double fiberglass tanks failing?
I didn't say never. So in the 15, 20 years that I've been doing gas stations, I haven't witnessed anything happen to these double wall fiberglass tanks. New Hampshire DES did a study over the not last 10 years, but from 2012 to 2021, that 10-year period, I believe there was 562 double wall fiberglass tanks. That's what the industry's kind of going to. Steel tanks aren't really that great. So they're going to double wall fiberglass. Of those 562 tanks that were installed in the 10-year period, there was no leaking. There was 0% leaking UST. So it's a LUST is how they identify that. So in that 10-year period, there haven't been any. That's pretty much what I've kind of mentioned.
Thank you. Now, I wasn't going to ask any more questions, so.
Go ahead.
Sure.
No. Never mind. I was going to ask, I'm not sure if this question should be directed to Mr. Mattis or perhaps Attorney Correa, because I was looking at your supplemental project narrative, and on page 5, you were addressing some of the conditions that have to be met under the town rules and bylaws to get the permit. And under the heading Social, Economic, and Community Needs, there's reference to the fact that there aren't enough competitors in the area, and that because of that, higher prices are being charged because there's no competition. That's, I think, to the point that you were making. Now, you would agree with me, would you not, that we can't set a condition in terms of what they're going to charge price per gallon with gasoline. I mean, for all I know, for all anyone knows, they could charge more than what's being charged by competitors. But that's a comment, I suppose, on my part. But the idea is that you want to create competition, so you want to, there's going to be a facility where people are going to go to get their gasoline if the price is competitive. But then under the traffic flow and safety portion, and this maybe gets also to what some of the points Mr. Kelly was making, it says that the new traffic generated by the proposed use would be minimal, considering gas stations are typically capture traffic that is already traveling along the adjacent streets and roadways. Isn't there a contradiction there? On the one hand, you're saying that you want to create competition to drive business to the station, but then on the other hand, saying that it isn't going to have a substantial impact on the traffic. I mean, if they were charging, I don't know, $3 a gallon, wouldn't everybody from everywhere be driving to this facility to
I'll
get?
let Mike address the comment first.
So the first thing so again, thanks for letting me speak here. So the first thing as far as the new traffic and stuff, it's not typical that just because all of a sudden you install gas pumps over there that you're going to be pulling people from the other side of Easton, because again, people are only driving 4 miles. So really what you're doing is the petroleum fueling that's going to be captured there most of it will already be existing customers that are already using the convenience store. So now this is just an added benefit to them, saving them an extra trip someplace else to get gas. Or it's going to be people that are already utilizing the street going up and down. If you're over in Northeastern, you know, you have options. You know, now you might go over towards the Brockton side of things. Okay, you're not going to take and drive all the way over here to save 20 cents, 30 cents a gallon. So you're not really, just because you're putting in, you know, these dispensers, you're not really driving all this traffic from all over the town that's gonna, you know, have a big impact on the traffic there. Most of it will be captured from the existing traffic already coming through.
Okay. So then so
So the
where is the competition then? If it's just going to be people that live in the immediate vicinity.
If you go up, keep going up, you can kind of highlight on here for us what'll happen here. So just go up one more. So here's what'll happen right now. So basically, you know, this is the pocket that we're playing with. So if you are a resident over within this community right here, your options are you're either, you know, heading up over here to Taunton, outside to the other side of Easton towards Brockton, or I think, is it Norton down here?
That would be Norton to the bottom.
Or down to the south. Okay, so you are literally, you're driving out of your community here. So what's happening right now is everybody's being sucked in to the All-Town location here. What will happen is you'll now have another option over here. So all the people that are coming up, you know, through Foundry and stuff, coming up over here on 106, you know, that are already, you know, utilizing the businesses in here, residents in here, stuff like that, will now have another choice for another gas station in this area. So all you're doing is you're just filling a gap here of people that are leaving this market area to go get fueling because they're having to do it on, you know, trips that they're making outside of the market because they just don't want to pay the high price. You know, they're saying to themselves, well, you know, I'm heading up to Brockton anyways, I'll go pay $3.29 in Brockton. You know, over here, you know, this is just going to create disparity because what'll happen is Alltown doesn't want to lose you guys. They don't want to lose business. So what are they going to do immediately when somebody else comes in? They're going to adjust their gas price. Go look in any location where there's new gas stations go up. I mean, you guys follow Cumberland Farms. Go look at where they build the new Cumberland Farms. Every time they build a new one in there, there's a price war. Go look where they put up a BJ's, a Sam's Club. You know, what all the gas stations do? They have to start battling with them on pricing because they want to maintain market share. That's exactly what will happen here. They're going to have to battle because they're going to want to try to retain that market share coming in from where the market area around Foundry Street and Highland and stuff over there. Okay, so that's what it's doing. So you're not creating anything new. All we're doing is we're just taking a piece of the market now and giving more options to customers to be able to, you know, try to save a little bit of money. That's what we're doing there. And as far as your question is, you know, saying, you know, is there any incentive for them to come in and raise their prices or price exactly the same as them? There isn't. You know, at the end of the day, that's not where the incentive is. You know, the incentive is to create the competition because it actually drives more business in the long run for everybody. Because what will happen is all of a sudden, you know, new patrons will come in, they'll see the store too, and people from the community that live over there that are currently driving away now have another option of something a little bit closer that they can utilize and not have to make that extra trip. So in some ways, you're alleviating some of the extra traffic and turning and all those congestion problems that people are, you know, talking about getting up onto those areas. Well, now less cars are going to have to be going up there potentially for fueling services, you know, and for their convenience services and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, was there something you wanted to add to that?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay,
Thank you.
And you had mentioned right at the very end of the presentation about the service station in Taunton, that you were involved in that process.
Yes.
You said, well, that, you know, there were 22 conditions that were attached to that.
Yes.
I'm just curious, I mean, since we're engaged in some amount of comparison here with competition and other service stations and everything, was that service station in an aquifer protection area?
Yes, it was.
And what kinds of conditions were applied to that particular application?
I have that in front of me. If you just give me a moment, I can
Sure,
give you an idea.
take your time.
Thank you. Okay, so they have the city of Taunton has a lot of standard conditions, if you will. So just certain plans that have to be datable, governed with as opposed to lighting and as-built have to be filed, certain standard conditions in that sense. But particular to this project, there was some landscaping screening that needed to be installed with a minimum of 8 feet tall. Add tactile warning strip at the parking aisle. The parcels have to be combined via an 81X plan, so it's just showing that the parcels have merged. It was 2 parcels, each had, I believe they were residences, but they were existing structures that were being demolished. Provide details for the file on the fuel containment system with a minimum overflow capacity of 110% as presented. Stamp the structural design plans for the retaining walls. Relocate the catch basin located in the proposed northern driveway or construct the driveway apron in such a manner to maintain the gutter line and the functionality of that catch basin. They dictated when the fuel deliveries could be. So that was between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. that the fuel deliveries should happen. They installed a chain link fence that was to be with privacy slats along the property line that was shared with the abutter next door, 10 Field Street, including a minimum of 8-foot height arborvitaes at the fuel storage tanks. So if you're looking at the site that's being built, there's a residence on the side on the corner of where it turns to Field Street. And the tanks were being put in the back of the parcel, and so they were closest to her backyard. So that's where the screening was being required of the arborvitae so that she couldn't see the tanks. It's above ground tanks. Provide a trash receptacle to serve the drive-through lane. They had a drive-through there. Some conditions regarding the speaker volume for the drive-through. And all attendants must have fuel tank safety and alarm response training. There was some concerns about the landscaping not surviving, so they did some conditions in regards to replacing them if something were to not survive for the arborvitaes. Alarm signals for leaks, spillage, or other issues with the fuel storage gasoline tanks must go to the operator and the owner, and then to the police and fire departments as appropriate. So they just wanted to make sure that was further solidified there. The hours of operation are 24 hours a day, so they had that as part of the conditions with some more verbiage with that as in regards to decreasing to hours of operation. If there's any issues, we're going to be decreased. So if they had any concerns brought to the board of there being some activity in the late hours that were causing problems, they had the ability to go in and decrease the hours of operation from the 24 hours. And then a 50% landscape buffer. That's just a general overview. I'm happy to provide this to the board, but just to give you an idea.
It just piqued my curiosity when you
Sure.
said it, so thank you.
Could I just ask, what's the address of that property?
Sure, it's 1925 and 1939 Bay Street. It was 2 parcels that were combined.
1925?
25, yes, and 1939. It's right near BJ's.
Just if you're heading down towards the
No, I-
green,
yeah, I
so
know-
just
I-
past BJ's and the doctor's office, that lot there.
Thank you.
And then one last question.
Sure.
You're aware that there was a submission from Richard Tierney, the operations manager of the Eastern Water Division?
Yes.
Yes, we're aware of that letter.
Yes.
You've seen that, okay.
Yes.
Is there anything that, and maybe this goes for everybody in your group, is anything that you would want to say in response to that, in terms of why it's not relevant?
Sure, I'd say that the design of the site that we have shown to the board has considered the concerns that were already provided at the hearing. I believe the water department's comment may have came after that hearing, but our site design certainly speaks to trying to address any concerns with that aquifer protection district. But I'll let Brian too speak to that as well with his work.
Yes, and through the chair, Mr. Chairman. So when we went to the DRT, department heads were there. The building inspector was there. I'm sure that I can remember the fire and police were there, and I'm sure the DPW and the water department were there. And there was nothing raised at that time that would prohibit the siting of this station on this property. And I think I said this at the last meeting, that the building inspector, the zoning enforcement officer, would have stopped us there and said, hey, you're in the aquifer protection, you're in the ACEC, it's not allowed, we don't even have to be here anymore. And they wouldn't even let us go forward. However, as you see on the portal, the building inspector is okay with the project. So is the planning board. The planning board has actually forwarded and voted a recommendation for approval to this board. So knowing that there's 2 more times at the apple, like I said earlier, with planning board and conservation to make sure that we've crossed the Ts and dotted the Is and said what we said and did what we said we were going to do. So this is the normal process in this town as well as other towns and cities, that we have to go through multiple boards and go through multiple checks. And I am sure that if you had a chance to condition things and allow things to move forward, that you would see the benefits of this station, not only for the owners, but for the town and for the residents of this town. So when we say that we've designed a site that's in full compliance with those regulations, we mean that. And I'm sure that the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission would see that and eventually agree with that after a couple of peer reviews. And then we'd be able to build this site. And it would only prove that what we said here tonight is true.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
You're welcome.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. I have a couple. I'm going to make them quick because we only have the room till 10:30 and it's 9:20. So I do have a couple questions. Hussein, since it's much easier to say Hussein than your last name, and I want to be respectful and not butcher your last name. What is the projected lifespan of a fiberglass, double wall fiberglass tank?
Fiberglass, excuse me, fiberglass tanks, they come with a 30-year warranty. I've seen tanks that are still in the ground. They started making them in the late 80s. I've seen tanks that are still in the ground. So what is that, 20, 35 years?
Okay. For that study you noted in New Hampshire of that 10-year span, what was the age, the average age of a tank that was
So
from
those
that
were
study?
those were all new tanks that were installed
Okay.
in that time frame.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Patel, what were the, did you think about what were your projected delivery times for fuel trucks? Have you thought about that?
So normally it's, we can do whatever makes the board happy and the people happy. We can dictate our time. What we have in our Taunton gas station is morning time. In New Hampshire, we don't have the fixed time. We can just call them, and every time we place an order for deliveries, we dictate the time right there on the app.
Mhm.
So it's not that we are restricted to a particular window. With every delivery, we can dictate our time of delivery.
Okay.
So we are very flexible with whatever people want for our delivery times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as, stepping through a special permit, obviously the first one, social, economic, community needs, the whole focus has been on saving a couple pennies. My question has to do with serving the needs of the community. Where was a study on community demand?
Well, I mean, that's why we had the market study. I mean, it shows that there's a need in this community for this. I know that it's focused on economic, but
Right.
I mean, the market's a huge issue in today's world. A lot of people are struggling to get by. So that's where our focus lies. This isn't a hospital, that we're proposing or anything like that, where it would meet some type of safety need or anything like that. But we did the best in what this type of business would bring for this community.
Okay. As far as neighborhood character, social structures, et cetera, the entire area, unlike the other gas stations in town, the entire area is surrounded by residential homes.
That's incorrect, Mr. Chairman.
Well, take away the bank.
Right.
Every other property around there is a
That's
residential
correct.
home. So thank you for the very poignant point that the bank is there. But beyond the bank, every other property around there is a residential home. How would you compare that with the other gas stations in town, and how would that not change the neighborhood character and social structure?
So this has been a business at least since 1999 that you had owned it. give or
But
take.
but a neighborhood convenience store.
Neighborhood convenience store, and we're proposing a neighborhood gas station in a similar sense. So through our architecture that you've seen and the design of the building, the volumes that we're expecting here, they've already had a customer base that uses this store. It fits in with this area. It is still, I understand there are residences that are nearby and on the sides of the site, but this is still in the business district zone. And any edge of a business or industrial or commercial zone will have likely residences around it or near it or in it. So this is just their site. This is where their business, they've had it since 1999, and they hope to maintain that similar neighborhood character business.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, one of the slides we presented earlier on the first meeting, we did show other gas stations in the town of Easton. One of them was on Washington Street, surrounded by residents, where the Ski-Doo is next to town, at the street town hall.
I mean, you got a farm across the street.
You got a farm.
But a lot of those houses are being knocked down. There's a mix of residents and business, and then you got the Ski-Doo, and then the thrift store, and then the pizza. So, but that's also on a major, that's a major corridor in town on Route 138. So it's different character, my opinion on that. As far as impacts on natural environment, when I was looking at the aquifer protection overlay districts in town, every other gas station in town is already in an overlay in the aquifer overlay protection district. Why should we ignore that and just say, well, every other gas station in town is already in an aquifer protection district? Or at what point should we be saying we need to make sure we're protecting our natural resources?
No, I don't think it should be ignored. I think that's why we've done our due diligence and all of our aspects to make sure we give you a proposal that we've done our homework, to make sure that we have a design that keeps that in mind. We're not saying that you should just disregard that all the others are there, so we might as well. We've done our due diligence to make sure that we have a safe proposal here to protect the environment.
Okay, and then as far as potential fiscal impact, has any sort of analysis on what you think or estimates on how the potential revenue, because tax revenue from the gas doesn't come back to the town.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
it does through road improvements and infrastructure improvements.
Sure, but it
through the
doesn't come
state.
back to the town. It goes to the mass
Through the state, but
highway.
yes, but
Yeah.
it still goes to improvements to the roads that we travel in the town.
What other fiscal impacts are you projecting that the town will benefit?
As I listed in the presentation, there's the tax base for the improvements. We have new amenities, a new building, and improvements to the site, so that increases the property taxes to the town, as well as.
So what is the estimated increase in property tax?
I don't have an estimate to provide
Okay.
you for that. That's okay. That's okay. That's part of the record. And I just lost my train. And the employment opportunities that this would bring.
Okay. How many more employees do you think this site would provide compared to the current store?
That's tough to say because it depends on what type of offices will be taking residents in the building, in the retail space. They can't speak to that until they have tenants that inhabit it.
All right. So at this point, I want to. We don't have any other questions from the board. Nope. Ms. Rummel?
Snow storage, where do you have it? Where is it going to be on which side of toward the aquifer or away from the aquifer?
No, all the snow storage is outside the aquifer, towards the front of the site and to the left of the site. No snow storage is proposed in the aquifer protection district.
Or on that side where?
Or on that side. Nothing in the aquifer protection district.
Okay. So at this point, the board is finished with its questions. Would anybody in the public, just a second, would anybody in the public be opposed to, I know there are a couple members of the public that have some presentations that they want to do. Would they be opposed to allowing those presentations, or did you, I mean, I'm. No, and that, exactly, but I just want to make sure we have to do the presentation, and no one's getting their rights to. Correct. All right. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. Well, I think we're all set with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you.
I left the microphone up here.
Okay. All right, who is up for? Because we're short on, we only really have the room for another 50 minutes. I'm going to say no on that because 5 minutes with a big room people turns into 10. All right, was it Mr. Howe wants to do?
I think it was.
Okay. Oh,
Or Mr. I'm not sure.
did you?
Well, it's one of them. It's this one. Would you like me to click? Yes, this one. This is for the public. Right. And then, can I click on this right here? Is this correct?
Yep, right. Thank you. Okay, my name is Rick Howard.
Do you want to put that microphone on? Just clip it onto your lapel. No, no, this is the important part.
Oh, all right.
We'll clip this. We'll just right here. There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, my name is Rick Houck, and I live at 100 Highland Street. I'm a 35-year resident of Easton, lived at the same address. And what am I doing here? I'm representing the expressed opinions of 335 Easton voters. Their names and addresses have been filed in Permit Eyes, along with a sampling of their comments, written comments, that you can read. I won't go through them specifically. Okay, so first, what are we doing here? We're balancing the objective and perceived benefits and burdens of this proposed project. We got to look at what's good, what's bad, look at the difference between the two. This is not the first time we've looked at this, at a project at this site. This was looked at in 2019. What I'm going to show you is a bunch of issues that occurred in 2019 and some that have come up in the discussions of the project this year. First of all, the benefits. Convenience, not a necessity for residents and passing motorists. Possibly, not probably, lower gasoline prices, and a minimal increase in the town's commercial tax base by the incremental value of the gas station. You really have to separate out the gas station from the rest of the convenience store to be able to evaluate that factor. Non-benefits, no demonstrated present need for a new gas station in town. That was said back in 2019. It holds true today. You can always have more gas stations, more competition, but does it come down to a basic need for a gas station in town right now? Is anybody waiting in line to get gas at any gas station in town? I haven't seen that happen, okay? How long have you waited for a gas pump? 5 seconds, all right? So why do we need more gas stations in town? Further, any future need will predictably decline. What does that mean? Well, we all know about the legislation that Massachusetts has passed that bans, not totally bans, but bans internal combustion engines after 2035. So what's happening is, as a result of the Massachusetts trying to decrease greenhouse gases and the effect in the environment, what we're trying to do is reduce our dependency on gas, not increase it. So over 35, up until 2035, consumption of gas is going to rapidly decrease as people buy electric vehicles and hybrids. We've said before, no taxes flow to the town from the sales of gasoline or even other convenience store items. Okay, so let's look at the burdens. First burden is introduction of a public nuisance and an abnormally dangerous activity affecting the health, safety, welfare, and comfort of some 40 individuals, including children residing in 14 directly abutting and interested residential properties. So those 14 families or 14 households are right up against it. They range from being 0 space away from the site to 300 feet away from the site. Okay, what does that result in? When the town permits an abnormally dangerous activity, and by the way, why is gasoline stations an abnormally dangerous activity? Because gas is toxic, it's explosive, and it's flammable, okay? So it's a dangerous activity to dispense it. When the town permits that, it assumes vicarious liability and strict liability that's secondary to the petitioner, secondary to the operator, but it still flows back to the town. So the town is ultimately responsible for that. And that's probably an insurable activity. It's covered to some degree by the town's insurance. Okay. There's possibly a serious threat to the town's APOD recharge areas from airborne and underground infiltration of toxic contaminants. So you heard, and I didn't get your name, sir? Yeah, that guy. You heard him talk about the various gas station equipment that's there and all the safeguards that go around the underground storage tanks, the safeguards that go around the pumping equipment, the vapor recovery system. The one thing that he really didn't talk about was the underground storage tank vent pipe, okay? And why is that important? It's the one area where there's most airborne pollution comes from that vent pipe. And you heard him quote a few things, that there have been studies since 2015 which revise your figures on setbacks a little bit. One is 2019, there was a Johns Hopkins study, and it said that the vent pipe puts out about 3 to 7 gallons of liquid gasoline out of every 1,000 gallons pumped. So every time that gas gets pumped out of those pumps, those tanks breathe and they emit toxic emissions into the air. So I had calculated 9,000 gallons, which was what we had previously talked about, right? 9,000 gallons a week. And I calculated that out, and it would be about 1,400 to 3,200,000 gallons of, 1,400 gallons to 3,200 gallons of toxic liquid gas put out into the atmosphere every year from this gas station. Okay. Significant increase in traffic turning into and out of the site and corresponding increased risk of accidents at an intersection already marked dangerous. Right in front of my house, Highland Street on both directions, there's a sign that says dangerous intersection. What I calculated out from the gas consumption, the 9,000 gallons, is about 91 vehicles per day average turning into and out of that site. So that would make about 182 turnoffs and turn-ins that would occur right around that intersection. So my question would be for the town, if that's already labeled a dangerous intersection, what about this plan makes that any safer? Nothing. So the next thing I'd say is a negative impact on the character of an otherwise predominantly residential neighborhood. It's the sole commercial property with any frontage on Highland Street, from one end of Highland Street to the other, okay? And we talked about what this property had been in the past. The building itself goes back to about 1950. It was originally a restaurant named the Tally Ho. Then it became the Corral. Then it became a Chinese restaurant. And then it became a farm store, ice cream stand, and deli that served prepared sandwiches. That was before the Patels bought it. Since then, he's had 20 years, from 1999 to 2019, he had 20 years in which he apparently didn't need a gas station at the site, and then suddenly he does, okay? So, kind of, how does that work out? There's another factor, foreseeable significant loss in property values by external obsolescence and resulting significant reduction in town's residential property tax base. I calculated out what that is, and this is a process called, or a legal theory called inverse condemnation. The external obsolescence is like a real estate term, a real estate appraisal term, right? Yeah. So anyway, what that does, everybody knows that if you live near a gas station, the price of your property goes down. So how much it goes down depends on how close to the gas station you live. So the ranges on external obsolescence and inverse condemnation, it ranges from anywhere from 2.3% at a quarter of a mile from a gas station to 17% directly abutting a gas station. So I calculated out on the basis of 10%. I was generous in what I calculated the reduction to be. That came out to about, I'll give you the figure. Okay, that came out to $1,074,000 for the 14 or 15 residents that are immediately there. And if you apply the 2.3% figure to the other 62 residences that lie within a quarter mile, okay, you're looking at a figure of $1,021,000. So together, inverse condemnation could cost us over $2 million in loss of property value. Okay, so what's the problem with that? The problem with that is inverse condemnation without proper compensation happens to be a violation of your civil rights, and it's punishable under Article 5 of the Constitution and under a federal statute by the ability to go and sue the town for the difference in your property values, okay? And there have been cases in the Supreme Court in 2019 and 2021 that said, I don't even have to go through any intermediate municipal boards, don't have to go through state courts, go directly to federal district court, okay? So that would represent a pretty sizable liability for the town. That's what I just talked about. Possible increases in the town's insurance premiums to pay for what? Any injuries that result to inhabitants from the abnormally dangerous activity that occurs. There's also fire risks that are included with gas stations as highly combustible. So there can be impacts on town services, fire department, police, etc. So if you look at this, I just broke them out as to what happened in 2019 and what was happening in 2024. Okay, so let's take a look at this from a graphic perspective. What are they really peddling? What's really being peddled here? It's convenience. Okay. So convenience, and convenience is a commodity, all right, that's not without its own cost, okay? So for example, when you think of convenience, think of DoorDash, think of Amazon, all right? What happens with those? You get the convenience of home delivery of everything. Do you pay extra for it? Yeah, you do pay extra for it. Does convenience have a cost to it as well? Or is it strictly a benefit? So you weigh that customer convenience against what are the burdens that I just talked about. First, the public health risks. What are they? Mr. McKenna covered these on April 9th. There's various forms of cancer, including childhood leukemia, and also miscarriages. Fire risks. What do fire risks come from? They include vehicle collisions with pumps or other vehicles, use of cell phones during refueling. What's that about? When you use a cell phone, there's a possibility that you can release static electricity at the same time that you're refueling. And gas stations are common. Gas station fires are common. All told, there's about a 3% chance that a station will have a fire. But if it does have a fire, it's a serious consequences, right? Environmental risks. Okay, I talked about that vent pipe and spewing all that gasoline into the air. The direction of that gas doesn't know where that line is, where the APOD occurs, okay? It just goes in. And what happens to that? The gas vapors and the VOCs coalesce with raindrops, and then the raindrops fall on the aquifer, and that works its way into the groundwater and eventually into the APOD, into the aquifer. Traffic safety risks, that's what I talked about, that dangerous intersection there. The introduction of significant additional traffic into an already dangerous intersection. Neighborhood public nuisance, what's that all about? Noise, principally. Noise or light pollution. More serious, it's noise. In terms of noise, normal conversation is about 60 decibels. It has a level of about 60 decibels. Noise of heavy traffic is about 80 to 85 decibels. Noise of a gas station is about 90 to 95 decibels. So what does that mean? Okay. Well, at 85 decibels level, if you experience that over a long period of time, it will be harmful to your hearing. And think about the residences right around that gas station and that noise and what that's going to do to people's hearing. Okay, what's the other thing? Residential property values, I talked about that. The reduction in residential property values. The net property tax base and revenues. And once you go through a process of inverse condemnation, it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. Because now you have lower property values and you have a lower base to collect your tax on. Town's fiscal liabilities, for the reasons that I said before, public health risks, inverse condemnation, that increases the town's liabilities. They have to create reserves for that. And sales tax revenues, we talked about that. Other important factors. There's no demonstrated community need to be served. There might be a want, but there's no need. We have enough gas stations. It's contrary to mass greenhouse gas emission reduction policy objectives. What are we supposed to be doing? We're supposed to be reducing sources of greenhouse gases to help the environment so we don't all fry in 10 years. Here you're taking a gas station, and it is another source of greenhouse gas emissions. That's contrary to what the direction that the country is headed in. Incompatible with the character of the surrounding residential neighborhood. I talked about that before too. I won't go over it again. Okay, so what's the bottom line? The petitioner has demonstrated no material benefits or other than merely convenience of passing motorists that would tend to outweigh or overcome the substantive and substantial public and private burdens on the town and its citizens that are presented by this project. What's the principle? The first duty of government is to afford protection to its citizens. That comes from the Massachusetts Constitution of 1766. For their health, safety, welfare, and property interests. Okay, so respectfully, we request that you vote to deny the special use permit application for a gas station at 95 Highland Street. The community says this is a bad idea. Please just say no. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't. Any of the members of the board?
No.
Thank you.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, as promised, as promised, they said we wanted to get that presentation in, and we do have a hard stop of 10:30 because we have to be out of the school building by then. So coming back now, questions from the public? Yes. So we'll start. You were second. Gentleman over there. So if you want to come down, we do have a microphone. You're going to state your name clearly and your address just so it's on the record. And make sure you, again, reminding you that you're not on a microphone system that's going to project to the room, so project your voice out so everybody can hear.
No,
It goes to the recording.
Right, it's for people watching on TV and for the recording.
Hello?
You're not going to hear it.
it doesn't amplify.
Okay, here. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. I actually prepared quite a few questions, didn't know what the system will be here. The first thing is the first presentation.
Well, first thing, name and address, please.
Sorry about that. Dmitry Zalman, 85 Highland Street. There was the map here where gentleman was showing, that his names here were showing runoff of the station, right? I don't know if you have it open there, it would be nice to see it. But, so I am about 300 feet from that location, right? Going down Highland Street. That part of my property that is on a Highland Street designated as wetlands protection. Who is to say, in the street goes down from that intersection towards me, who is to say that water runoff or freaky 100-year storm or something freezing, flowing down will not damage that said wetland? It's not across, it's down. I have questions about tank monitoring, fire hydrants. I think they kind of secondary questions. The presentation was very good. And I would disagree with the need for gas station because I just measured the other 3 stations that we have on 5 corners, which is the mobile, the 5 corner gas, and
There's only 2 there now.
Sonico is no
One's just a
longer there?
repair station.
Oh, just repair station. I mean, they 1.5 miles from this location. Personally, I will not drive to another town to get the gas unless I'm going there for shopping or something. So the argument for like this adds more convenience, it's iffy, in my opinion. My main question about wetland protection. Because if you look at that, if you have the presentation where it's at MDL, this is where I'm located, it's kind of close and it's down. And the special gentleman said that the water goes from, they kind of push it towards the front. And there were questions about the levels, how levels. So I'm asking the same question towards me, towards wetlands, that part of my property right on the Highland Street. I believe that's a danger to that.
Are you looking for an answer on that, or?
I posing a question for discussion, and I don't know if they looked into that particular wetland
Well,
spot.
I'll tell you based on my experience, and I'm not going to speak as the civil engineer doing that work. They have a requirement to contain all water on that property. Is it 100% they contain 100% of the water on the property? I don't think anybody can say it's 100%, but they do have a requirement to handle all water over impervious surface and direct into the appropriate, what are they saying, the rain garden and the catchment basins.
Okay.
So that's what they designed to as best they can.
All right, I just thought to bring this up because I didn't see it covered.
Okay, ma'am, you had your hand up next. Yes, yes, I do.
So I'm Fran or Vern Ann Powacheninsky. I'm 104 Highland Street. I have a couple comments. I'll be quick because I know it's a long night. First thing is there's an additional threat to the aquifer zone is a likelihood of invasion of contaminated stormwater runoff emanating from the site. So Highland Street slopes downwards in a westerly direction into the zone from its intersection with Boundary Street. And during downpours, which we get a lot of lately, we see runoffs from Boundary Street that exceeds the capacity of the drains located at the intersection. Any contaminated runoff from the site onto either Highland Street or Boundary is likely to affect the zone substantially with both streets. And also in addition to that, the presentation of, higher goes to lower ground, which I think we all can understand, what about the amount of rain? Lately, we were having a lot of downpours. Have the petitioners look into the rain amounts because that can significantly affect basically the runoff and if things get clogged, as I just said here. Lastly, I just want to point out the petitioners keep talking about cents, but once again, as was clearly stated tonight, is that the value of the home will go down. And therefore, the revenue of what the town gets from our taxes will be decreased. And then the intersection is very dangerous. I have 2 children. It's just a dangerous intersection, and just adding to that section with deliveries and additional cars does not make sense. And why would you, there's 2 gas stations down the street. There's not a need, as was stated here before, it was not demonstrated that there's a need from the Easton residents. So everything's like hypothetical. So I think it's clear, at least to me as a scientist, that carcinogens possibly in our drinking water is not a good idea, especially if the town has been dealing with PFAS. Do we really want to go and open another can of worms where we're gonna have to deal with another pollutant in our drinking water. Thank you.
All right. I do want to address one of the comments there, dealing with heavy rain, ponding of water, et cetera. Part of their proposal is redesigning all that so that that water is contained on the site, which relieves all that water entering the town's drainage system, which should, they're designed by the, well, hold on, let me finish. And that's supposed to, by the engineer's design, professional engineer, that's credited, stamps, the whole deal, that's supposed to reduce the amount of water on the road in the infiltration system, so you shouldn't have all that ponding of water. That's just a statement based on their design, so I just want to make sure on that initial comment, what they're proposing is better drainage that should alleviate that. That's all. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm just saying their proposal alleviates that.
Right, but in respect to science, I want to see the map of the rain.
I get it. I get it.
Respectfully, sir.
Sure. Sir, you're next. Yeah, grab that microphone out of the bin there. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Kevin Harnett. I'm at 8 Sierra Drive. And one of the questions I have, we talking about some catastrophic events like windstorms and everything. One thing that nobody has mentioned is earthquakes. A few weeks ago, we had some tremors here. So there is a possibility we could have earthquakes. In fact, I pay quite a bit extra on my homeowner's insurance every year to cover earthquakes. So although rare, it's not an impossibility. So my question is, could an earthquake rupture the fuel storage tank? And if so, what's the implications of that?
There's no answer to that. Earthquake could rupture this whole street. There's no real answer to that. You're asking a hypothetical question.
Well, it is hypothetical, but it's still a risk. That's undeniable. And do we want to take a chance of an earthquake contaminating our drinking water? So that's the question I have. Maybe it's a rhetorical question, but it is a question that I'm just putting out there.
That's okay. All right.
Okay,
Is that it, sir?
Me.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. You're up.
My name's Alan Weeks. I live at 10 Michael Drive. I'm representing myself tonight. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. The plan that I pulled from Permitize today still has snow storage in the aquifer. So I don't know. There was a statement made that the snow storage has been moved out of there, but it's on the side of the lot that is in the aquifer. And as you know, it's very difficult to predict where you're going to push snow. Snow's no different than rain. It's going to get pushed from the gas pump side into the aquifer where the snow storage is designated by folks that are plowing. As we talked before, rubber absorbs gasoline very, very well. As cars go through the pumps where there's spills, they go out the exit roadway and trail all of the gas on that exit roadway, which is also in the aquifer. So while the drainage system looks good, it's very difficult to prevent all of that. Another point that we had made last time that I wanted to bring up again, because I think there was maybe an action to talk to town council about it, is prohibited use in the aquifer is sale and storage. We've addressed the storage, but I continue to want to question the sale. That entire parcel is required for commerce and sale. The acid test would be, can you sever off that portion that is in the aquifer and still have commerce and sell gas? I don't think you can. You need a way to get cars out. You need a way to, there's a loading dock there, there's a generator pad there, there's a whole bunch of stuff, a handicap ramp there. That all facilitates the commerce and the sale. Now, I guess the question, was that ever brought up to town council?
We've asked a number of questions at town council. It's very difficult for town council to comment on specifics. They try and give us guidance on the law. And sometimes, remember, laws are written mostly by attorneys, and sometimes the law is very vague. It doesn't have a clear definition and sometimes needs to be litigated.
Well,
So
I put that forth that I still believe it's a violation of that basic sale in the aquifer. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to switch to the other side and I'll get over there. I'm sorry, I thought I saw a hand on this.
I'm Greg Hart from 2 Michael Drive, right down the street from Variety, 37 years. A couple questions. One is on that map. I mean, I just sat, the map we put up there with the 2 sections where the aquifer was and where the aquifer wasn't. Basically, half of the site has the water flowing to the left. Everybody's seen the map too much tonight, probably. So, to me, that site, the way the plan is, the water's going to flow to the left on half the site, not just about on the other side of the green line, but half the site. Now, I understand the design and the flow and the drainage, and Alan's point is totally well taken on the snow side of it, because it came up at the last meeting. There's no way you're going to get some 19-year-old kid to make sure he plows the snow in the right place in the middle of a blizzard. So that issue's real. I've got about 42 other questions, none of which I'm going to ask right now, except for this one. Is there going to be a vote tonight?
Yes.
There is. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Is the light on?
The light on? So do I do?
There's a
on?
button. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you for the, Nancy Hauk, I almost said 95 Highland Street, oh my God, 100 Highland Street. And thank you for this opportunity. First, I'd like to respond about the town department's comments and the recommendations that the petitioners cited. So the Planning and Zoning Board voted to recommend this project for further consideration to the ZBA for a special permit at their meeting on March 25th. I watched the entire meeting. It lasted 1 hour and 40 minutes. Of this meeting time, there were exactly 4 minutes and 40 seconds of introduction, examination, and discussion by the Planning Board regarding the project at 95 Highland Street. There was no mention of neighborhood opposition, even though a 40-plus page document had been sent to the planner's office well in advance of the meeting. There was no mention of neighborhood character or environmental and health or safety concerns. The 4-minute discussion simply mentioned purely cosmetic matters. For example, there'd be a new building. Canopy would be more attractive than what was presented in 2019. There was no mention of the ZBA findings of 2019. Planner stated that she had previously been concerned about diesel fuel being offered in large vehicles going through that tight intersection. She incorrectly stated that there were no diesel pumps, although they are clearly marked on the plan. So I, for one, am very grateful that you, ZBA, will have had the benefit of hearing much more on this important decision before making such a casual recommendation. Secondly, we covered this, but I have to say it. The DPW actually changed its comment from no comment to recommend. And this is what they said. DPW has no objection to the issuance of a special permit for the use of the property as a gas station. There are already gas stations in Easton that are currently located in Canoe River area of critical environmental concern and or the town's aquifer protection district. So here's the thing. Canoe River Aquifer Advisory Committee was created in 1987. It was created in order to educate the public and help inform town decision makers about the need to protect the aquifer. It's our understanding that these gas stations were built before the ACEC and the APORD were even created. They were grandfathered. In other words, we didn't know any better back then, just as we didn't know about PFAS contamination and a host of other environmental concerns. We have since created bylaws in our town to protect the APOD. Again, we count on you, the ZBA, to use the benefit of our history and experience to more accurately assess the situation. And finally, I just have a comment about neighborhood neighborhood character and the businesses within it. So when the petitioners were looking for support for their project, they approached some of the neighbors, including myself, door to door. We had a polite and respectful conversation. They told me they had lost quite a bit of revenue when the new liquor store opened up the street at Highland Plaza. I told them I'd love to see the store improved, but that I just couldn't accept adding a gas station there. I mentioned that they should think about visiting businesses such as the Little Peach on Columbus Ave in Northeastern. It's a pristine little store that's seen as an asset to that neighborhood. They even have sandwiches named after their streets. So for 49, whoops. The light's not on. Somebody's home. So for 49 years, 95 Highland was occupied by businesses that were harmonious with the neighborhood. For 25 years after that, it has existed as a standalone convenience store. This is the second attempt to add a gas station here. A convenience store is a permissible use of this property. A gas station requires a special permit. It is not a right. The only ones that can grant that right is the ZBA. Neighborhood businesses can have either a positive or negative impact on a neighborhood. The inclusion of a gas station on this property definitely tips the balance. Thank you.
Going to take one more comment. We got one. She beat you to it.
Just a mom, I need to do this for my kids, so.
Can we just make sure the microphone's on? Because it's horrible when we watch the recording later and.
Yes.
There you go. Great. All right, name and address, please.
So I'm Catherine Johnson-Baralt. I live at 28 Heidi Road with my 6-year-old and 12-year-old son and daughter. I just want to point out that your other locations are highway and industrial locations, not near family homes. This is a family neighborhood. You have neighbors of Leandros standing up to vouch for their business and the trust the business has established in the neighborhood. You do not have that with Highland Variety. Why do you think that is? The standards of cleanliness demonstrated by your current establishment are concerning no matter the certifications. It is currently an eyesore, and now you will be handling toxic chemicals around our children. The neighborhood has zero trust in your ability to maintain standards of safety and cleanliness. In the presentation, the parties were unclear whether it is the Canoe River aquifer, and others calling it aquifer. The word probably has been used over and over again this evening, such as in the discussion around the water drain, wetlands, and groundwater. Your lack of accuracy around such critical factors speaks volumes about how important our clean water supply and the environmental health to surrounding families is to this business. Your slides refer to an environmental benefit. There is no environmental benefit to this gas station. At best, you're trying to reduce harmful negative impact, but the runoff is still in our neighborhood, even if not technically in the aquifer. As was said, multiple studies have confirmed the cancer risk to children living in close proximity of gas stations. There's no question there will be an increase in traffic due to this gas station. Envisioning morning school drop-off or buses being impacted by morning gas deliveries is a nightmare. This gas station will negatively impact all children and families living in close proximity and ultimately negatively impact the Easton community when such nice families like ours move from the neighborhood. To the finance and sales guy talking about how crucial having more gas stations is to people like me who's a school teacher. I don't care about the expensive gas prices. We will happily pay more for gas for our kids not to have increased cancer risk. Competitive gas prices in town is not as important to our neighborhood as our children's health and safety. Thank you.
All right, so just due to time concerns, I'm going to sort of close off on the public comments at this time, and I do appreciate everyone taking the opportunity. At this point, we're going to close the public hearing. So we'd need a motion to be able to.
If I may just add one point.
All right, go ahead, Council. Sure.
I know it was mentioned that the planning board only had the 4-minute hearing, but I don't know if this board is aware, we were in front of that board in May of 2023, I believe, for a preliminary site plan discussion. So there was an actual discussion with that board for the plans, and that's kind of what they were commenting on. I just wanted
Okay.
to provide that clarification.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
We'll give Ms. Rummel that one.
Ms. Rummel gets it.
That's right. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay, that is a 5-0. So at this point, it is time for discussion. So again, I'll just remind everyone, it's a special permit application. So we'll be following our criteria within the Easton zoning bylaws for special permit, 235-56. And there are 6 criteria. And as has been applicants' counsel did provide their input on that. Ultimately, the determination does end up lying with us as a board. So first would be social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal. So as usual, I like to do is step through each individual element, address each element, and then move on to the next. And in order for a special permit to go through, all 6 criteria by our zoning bylaws would need to be affirmed. So again, socioeconomic community needs served by the proposal. Who wants to start up on that one? Because I don't always want to be the one to start the discussion.
Well, I'll start at this end, if that's all right.
Please do.
I just wanted to commend all of the presenters. I thought it was a very thorough presentation. However, I do feel in this particular area that I don't see that it was met. It seemed that the information was rather speculative, if not, I mean, it may be that I'm just not schooled enough in marketing, but it was a lot of some sort of sense that will, as you said, I think, Mr. Chairman, save a few cents here, a few cents there if we have competition. But it just didn't seem like enough to hang our hats on in terms of what's needed. It was just not something I felt like we should take.
Okay. Anybody else?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Ms. Rummel on the economic and community impact. And I'll just say about the social, I think everybody here has pretty much hit on it. We're not talking about like an ice cream stand or a place where people hang out or socialize. So for me, I don't think that's met either, the social ed.
And I'll just say that to the extent that community needs is something to be addressed, it seems pretty apparent that the community surrounding this location is vehemently opposed to this. So if in that respect, I don't believe that this criteria has been met either.
Okay. Traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. I don't, we can only go by what the traffic engineers have provided. It doesn't look like there's a lot of, I mean, there will be additional traffic, there's no getting around, but is there a massive amount of additional traffic? It doesn't appear so from the 2 different traffic studies done at different times of the year. Adequacy of utilities and other public services, not so sure there's a lot. I'm just going to reference my own notes. I did put that away. Adequacy of utilities and other public services, I guess as far as serving that particular lot, it seems like they are adequate. 4 would be neighborhood character and social structures. I think you sort of hit on it, that the neighborhood, when it comes down to it, neighborhood character is defined by the people living in that individual neighborhood, right? And to me, it's obvious that the folks in the neighborhood are opposed to it, and it would change the character. And the last, I'm sorry, I forget your name, the last, Catherine, you know, when it does change, people do start to look elsewhere, and that would change, you know, could potentially, everything's potential, could potentially change social structures. Impacts to the natural environment.
I mean, I appreciate the fact that the design that's been presented is state of the art, and that, you know, in that respect, it's the best possible system that could be designed. It's right, and it's right next to an aquifer, and that's one of the reasons why I was asking the questions about the groundwater. I mean, whether or not a permit is, you know, or that aspect of this needs to be developed, or you need a permit for that or not, it seems apparent to me that there will be some occasions, even if it's just on a very drip basis, contaminants getting beneath the surface and getting down into the groundwater. As was pointed out by the chairman of the Water Division, the town has been spending a lot of money to try to rectify a situation there that where there's
PFAS.
Yeah, PFAS, and it just if there was some overwhelming need for a service station in town, if we only had 2, for example, just to pick an arbitrary number, that'd be one thing. But to my count, there's 8 service stations, and even if it's just 0.5% chance that something catastrophic is going to happen at this station, why put it next to that aquifer? That would just, it would be horrible, and I don't. Everything is a risk-reward analysis, and I just think the risk far outweighs the reward in this particular situation when it comes to the natural environment.
Anybody else on that? Ms. Rummel?
I was just would just sort of agree that the line is in the middle of the property, but Mother Nature doesn't look at lines. The water is going to flow downhill, whether it's above ground or below ground, towards the aquifer. And that worries me the most of any consideration here.
Ms. Rummel?
Just a couple that were mentioned. In the, I too am looking at these plans after I asked the question. I had seen that the snow storage is located within the aquifer. I believe that somebody also from the audience brought up an issue that I find compelling, and that is that the use really it's not as though the aquifer is just off in a corner somewhere. You've got a third of the property, perhaps maybe a little less, that is within the aquifer, and these are all things that support the loading zone, the generator pad, the dumpsters, the drive-throughs, the aprons near the doorway and parking lot that are part of this overall use. And the use of storage and sale is prohibited. So the sale area is closest to that. The other thing was that in the bylaw itself, I will say that I was not moved by the initial presentation by the opponents. I think it was a lot of that was as unattributed and sort of anecdotal, so it's not something to rely on. But I think we can rely on our own bylaw. In section 9.1, talks about drainage in an ACEC, all impervious surfaces in an ACEC, that all runoff shall be recharged on the site. And I believe the testimony was that based on these rather, as someone mentioned already, state-of-the-art, really commendable attempts here. But I'm not convinced that it's all going to be recharged on the site. The other thing is that the Canoe River ACEC, now that we've established that's what it is a sole source aquifer. And this is the difference. It means that if the drinking water is contaminated, that a large number of the populace and members of the populace will have to get their water from some bottling facility somewhere in Hartford. That the fact that the water department recommended against it, I think is weighs very heavily in my determination. And finally, under section 235, also mentioned under our aquifer protection overlay district that toxic or hazardous waste from anyone engaging in motor vehicle services, service, sales, and repair is presumed to be toxic. So you have to make special considerations for trying to mitigate. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that the risk to this ACEC, which is on top of being an aquifer, is an area of critical environmental concern. I just find that it's just
Okay. And then last was potential fiscal impact, including impact of town services, tax base, and employment, taking into account any proposed mitigation. I think, Mr. Hauk, you did a good job on your presentation looking up, which is, if I were in your shoes, a neighbor would have been looking up the same numbers because that's how my brain works. But would have been looking on, being in real estate, looking at the impact of commercial businesses in the area, because different parts of town, one house have one value, a different part of town, that same house will have a different value, and a lot of components go into that. And certainly, if you're near a gas station in this instance, or a town I grew up in, there was a quarry, and the houses near the quarry where there was blasting and everything, obviously those homes lost a lot of value. And while a improvement in the building and an improvement in the lot would increase tax base from that, is that offset by potential losses in value by the local residents? And again, being in real estate, and looking out for buyer clients, and you look at everything around it. And especially when you know an area and you have a client come from the area who doesn't know the area, we have a reasonable care as part of being a realtor, and reasonable care is helping them understand things that they don't even know to ask for. And that is something that myself and my business side would be pointing out to a client, and I do that regularly. So that is, I think that there's an offset there between the impact of increased tax revenue from the business versus loss in value to those property owners abutting that property. Again, that's all a personal opinion. I don't know if anybody has anything to add.
I do not.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Hauk, I forget the exact term he used, but he was talking about how the properties decrease in value. So yeah, I never heard that term. I'm not even. You can explain it to me later. I mean, I think I understood what he was saying, and I think that's what you're saying a lot better than I could. So I just say that that's in my mindset.
Sure. All right. We have stepped through the 6 elements of the special permit. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny the petition for special permit for 95 Highland Street, Easton.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hamburger, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of denying the special permit as presented? That's 5-0. During the meeting. All right. Yeah, we have to sign. Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Mr. Hamburger, Mr. Kay was second. All those in favor of adjourning? 5-0.
Profiles and terms. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you sign that one?
And then these,
That's.
if.
Remember we had a vote to extend.
These are the variants.
Sure.
I forget who was on it again. Was it,
No.
George was on it? Yeah, George was on the variances, right? I believe.
402 term,
Oh.
all right. Hold on.
Okay. Here,
402 Turnpike.
Ron, were you
Yes.
Ron, were you at the last meeting?